Chapter 40. Fang Yan. The veins on Lu Chaoga's jade-like hand that was holding the teacup were bulging. She had the urge to crush the teacup. He was flirting with her. Naked flirting. Here. Don't talk nonsense. Lu Chaoga's face was frosty as she shouted sternly. How am I spouting nonsense? Fang Yan was so furious that he was about to explode. Don't think that you can twist my thoughts and opinions just because you're a leader. I'm also a man with morals. I have the professional qualities of a teacher. Go look in the mirror and see if you look good. If you dare to say that I don't look good, I'll jump into the Sparrow River and swim naked. Lu Chaoga was about to cry. The education that she had received was not like this. She had never met someone like Fang Yan in her life. She really didn't know how to deal with such a rascal. I knew you wouldn't dare, Fang Yan said coldly. The truth is in the hands of the majority. Am I the first person to say that? Of course not. Fang Yan. Lu Chaoga tried hard not to lose her temper and said, let's talk about something serious. What do you mean? Fang Yan's eyes widened. I'm not serious because I'm praising your beauty. You can insult me, but you don't have to insult yourself, right? Fang Yan. Lu Chaoga felt like she was about to run out of energy. Let's change the topic. Fine. Fang Yan's anger finally subsided. He sat back down obediently and said, is this house yours? No. Lu Chaoga shook her head. The school assigned it. It's one of the benefits of teaching at Rosefinch. No wonder everyone likes to be a leader, Fang Yan said enviously. I can't even get a small room in the school, but a leader can live in a small villa with its own door and courtyard. What's going on? Lu Chaoga asked curiously. The school has a rule that every teacher taught by Rosefinch can apply for housing. Even intern teachers are no exception. Didn't you apply to the school? I did apply, but they took me to a storage room that no one wanted. The walls were broken, and the ceiling was leaking water. Could I even live in a room like that? He had no choice but to rent a room outside. Otherwise, why would I need to borrow money from you? Preposterous. It was the first time that Lu Chaoga had heard of such a thing. She said angrily, they are taking revenge. Isn't that right? Fang Yan said. I've always suspected that too. It's not that I'm too outstanding, it's that the leader I follow is too outstanding. Otherwise, why would they always target me? Lu Chaoga clasped her fingers together and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, she picked up a bunch of keys from the table and threw them to Fang Yan. What's the meaning of this? Fang Yan grabbed the keys and asked. This is the key to this house, Lu Chaoga said. If you give me the keys, where will you live? Fang Yan asked. Soon, Fang Yan's heart bloomed with joy. You mean we're living together? That's great. In the past, I thought that only bodyguards could live with female employers. I didn't expect that a teacher could live with a female principal. You're the one living here. Lu Chaoga had to correct him. I have another place to live. Is that so? Fang Yan's enthusiasm was greatly diminished. It's not convenient to live outside and it's not safe to drive if you live too far away. Look at the news every day. There's either a car accident here or a rear-end collision there. It's frightening to hear. This house is so big. You have one room and I have one room. Although the principal's reputation isn't very good these years, but I think you're different from them. I don't think you'll do that kind of thing to me. Lu Chaoga didn't speak. She just stared coldly at Fang Yan. Are you hesitating? Lu Chaoga still didn't speak. She stared coldly at Fang Yan. You don't have to rush to answer me. Think about it, Fang Yan said. There's no need to think about it, Lu Chaoga said. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. It's impossible in this life, and it's impossible in the next life. Fang Yan widened his eyes and said, why are you so excited? I feel sorry for occupying your big house alone, so I wanted to invite you to live with me. I even deliberately ignored some of the bad comments about the principal's position in society. I order you as the principal that from now on, you're not allowed to speak again. Lu Chaoga put down the teacup and said loudly, I have 3 requirements for you to live in the house. First, help me take care of the flowers and plants in the house. I'll settle accounts with you if a pot dies or a pot dries up. I'm sure you know the value of these flowers better than I do. I'll deduct it from your salary. If it's not enough this month, I'll deduct it from the next month until it's all deducted. Second, the house has to be cleaned carefully. I don't like the stench. I'll come over to check on it from time to time. Third, don't bring any random people in. If the neighbors think you're affecting them, I'll take back the house immediately. Do you understand? Fang Yan didn't answer. Lu Chaoga didn't want to hear any more of his answers. She jumped up from the sofa with a whoosh. She carried her bag and walked to the door. She grabbed her suit jacket from the hanger and walked out. Tap, 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 the high-heeled shoes tapped on the bluestone floor. It seemed that she was in a hurry. Understood. Fang Yan breathed a sigh of relief. He could finally speak. After Lu Chaoga left, Fang Yan suddenly felt much more comfortable. This woman was too cold to Fang Yan. He couldn't feel the warmth of spring. She really wasn't a qualified leader. Fang Yan walked around the house with a teacup in his hand. There were 3 tiled houses, with bedrooms on the left and right sides, a living room and a Western-style kitchen in the middle. The layout of the house was similar to that of a single-story villa. Of course, Fang Yan could understand that no matter how rich the school was, they couldn't be too ostentatious. Otherwise, if the media reported it. The parents knew that the teachers lived in villas and deliberately didn't send their children to tuition. Where would the teachers collect tuition fees? The front yard was very large, with flowers and plants on both sides. Although the backyard was small, there was an open-air set of stone tables and chairs, as well as some flowers and plants. It had to be said that Lu Chaoga really had an extraordinary love for flowers and plants. I'm going to live in this house in the future. Fang Yan couldn't be happier. You're really good at flattering yourself. Teacher Fang Yan used practical actions to prove to everyone that flattery was pervasive. Some people said that they hated people flattering them the most, but if you had to flatter them, they would still be very happy in their hearts. If Fang Yan didn't praise Lu Chaoga's beauty, how could he live in such a beautiful house? It's nothing more than a matter of technique. Fang Yan concluded in his heart. He felt that his performance today was still not bad. Women, after all, who didn't want to hear others say that they were beautiful? Of course, some details could still be perfected, but one must not be arrogant and complacent. As soon as Lu Chaoga walked into the campus, the office's deputy director, Jing Jing, ran up to her and asked with a smile, Principal Lu, you haven't had dinner yet, right? Do you want the school's special kitchen to cook a few dishes for you? Jing Jing had been standing guard at the entrance of the campus and the teachers' living quarters. Obviously, he knew everything about Lu Chaoga's movements. Do you know that teacher Fang Yan is being troubled by the logistics department? Lu Chaoga didn't respond to Jing Jing's attentiveness and walked quickly to the school's parking lot. Principal Lu, about this, I heard some rumors. Jing Jing said awkwardly. He secretly cursed in his heart. Seems like that damn hooligan reported me to the leader again. Is he still a man? Why does he always use these dirty tricks? Just thinking about it made me angry. Why didn't you tell me? I don't think it's a big deal. Jing Jing was a little guilty. Of course, he knew that the logistics department dared to do this because they wanted to smear Lu Chaoga's reputation. Isn't Fang Yan your person? I won't let him have a good life in school, I won't give you face. But, thinking that after saying it, Lu Chaoga would jump out to stand up for Fang Yan. My little Fang Yan, why is it your mess again? Do you know how much trouble you've brought me after you came? Do you really think so? Lu Chaoga suddenly turned around and stared at Jing Jing with a sharp gaze. Jing Jing's forehead was dripping with cold sweat, but he didn't dare to find an excuse to lie to Lu Chaoga. This woman was very smart, he knew it a long time ago. Call the logistics supervisor, Chen Jiang, and tell him that I'm lending my assigned room to teacher Fang Yan. Let them handle the residential procedures for teacher Fang Yan. Principal Lu, this isn't good, right? This is your house, you're giving it to a new male teacher. I want everyone to see that I, Lu Chaoga, will not mistreat anyone who follows me, Lu Chaoga said domineeringly. People who can do things and do things should be rewarded. Jing Jing was silent. He was actually worried that if Lu Chaoga gave her assigned house to Fang Yan, there would be rumors in the school that she and Fang Yan had an ambiguous relationship. Otherwise, there were so many male teachers in the school, why did she give it to Fang Yan? If the rumors appeared, how would he explain it to the man known as Jiang Zhongzhu in a certain circle? Would he swing a baseball bat and beat him again? However, Lu Chaoga deliberately led the topic to buying a horse's bone, so he couldn't say that out loud. Besides, it was his own lack of awareness and dirty thoughts. Touching the wound on his forehead, Jing Jing sighed softly. But this is a dirty world. Chapter 41. Every time Fang Yan came back, he would be warmly received by Sister Li. Mr. Fang, you're back? Mr. Fang, are you hungry? I made your favorite salt and pepper spare ribs today. Mr. Fang, come and eat some fruits. I saw that the grapes were very fresh today, so I bought a few caddies. I've already washed them. You can wash your hands and eat. The delicacies and the temptation of a beautiful woman made Fang Yan's enthusiasm for the beautiful courtyard inside the school that Lu Chaoga lent him decreased a lot. Fang Yan was in a lot of pain and was also very conflicted. In terms of living environment, the small courtyard of Lu Chaoga and the small house that he was renting with Sister Li were worlds apart. However, if Fang Yan moved in, who would make him sweet and sour pork, prawns, pork belly, radish, steamed oyster, white melon and sea white soup every day? Who would prepare apples, oranges, bananas, grapes, durians, and dragon fruits for him every day? Live food. We common people often talk about basic necessities. That is to say, subconsciously, we think that wearing clothes and eating are ranked before living and traveling. It was also because of this reason that Fang Yan had never opened his mouth to tell Sister Li that he wanted to cancel the lease. Therefore, while enjoying Sister Li's attentive service, he also had to bear the corresponding responsibility. Under the light, Jiang Qin was bright and beautiful. Because she had just taken a bath, her black hair draped over her shoulders, adding a little womanly flavor to her. She was young and inexperienced, and there was a fresh milk fragrance on her body, making people feel relaxed and happy. She was wearing big mouth monkey cartoon pajamas, and her chest. Pooey pooey, what chest? Fang Yan looked at Jiang Qin's sleepy little face and said, let me tell you a joke. Jiang Qin became a little more energetic. She rested her chin on her arm that was lying on the table and asked in a lazy voice, what joke? I saw it on my phone, Fang Yan said with a smile. A few years ago, she abandoned me and married a country bumpkin who drove a Passat. I secretly made up my mind to return the humiliation I suffered to her in the future. A few years later, when I appeared in front of her in a Mercedes-Benz, she was surprised and even invited me to her house. Jiang Qin's mind was completely attracted by Fang Yan's story. Her big eyes stared at him without blinking. Was this an inspirational story of a loser who was abandoned by his goddess and then worked hard to succeed? Do you regret it now? What were you doing earlier? Of course, I also rejected her decisively because I still had to go to the company to pick up my boss from work. Fang Yan continued. Ahahaha, Jiang Qin laughed out loud, his limp body rocking back and forth. It's so fun. Why is this person so despicable? Mr. Fang, I think he's like you, ha ha ha. Fang Yan smiled as well. However, as he smiled, he couldn't smile anymore. What do you mean by this person is so despicable? Mr. Fong, I think he's like you. How am I despicable? I've been influenced by poetry since I was a child. I polished my body with medicinal herbs and tempered my muscles and bones with Tai Chi. I'm the successor of Fong's Tai Chi. Didn't you notice a kind of temperament in me called immortal style? How am I despicable? If you don't respect me, I won't tutor you. Fong Yen said angrily. If you don't tutor me, my mom won't cook delicious food for you. Jiang Qin was still laughing. Her nose and eyes were squeezed together. She looked cute and funny. Fong Yen was furious. You dare to threaten me? Girl, let me make it clear to you. I tutor you not because your mom cooks delicious food for me, then you'll eat outside tomorrow? Let's continue with the tutoring. Fong Yen said. This story is very funny, right? But have you ever thought that as long as you change one word in this story, it will become a very warm and romantic love story? Jiang Qin's eyes widened and she said, Can it be like this? Why don't you try again? Fong Yen laughed. See if you can find the word that needs to be changed. Jiang Qin habitually bit the shaft of the pen in his mouth as he pondered seriously. Changing one word will become a warm and romantic love story? The little girl murmured. Which word should I change? Fong Yen looked at her with a smile, waiting for her answer. Jiang Qin was obviously not a patient person. She gave up after 3 to 5 minutes. She threw the drool-stained pencil on the table and said irritably, It's so annoying. I can't think of, which word should I change? Fong Yen looked at her with a smile and said, Everyone has a soul. Every text has a thought. These words are alive. They are a hole. You have to find a mole from this hole. This mole is very small, but it is also very conspicuous. If you can calm down, you can find it. I'm already very calm. The little girl said coquettishly. She kicked Fong Yan's calf with her bare feet under the table and said, Mr. Fong, tell me quickly. I'm really curious. If you change boss to wife, just changing one word and changing the identity, will the meaning of the story be completely different? Ah! The little girl exclaimed. She didn't think that the change would be so simple. However, after the change, the soul of the story immediately underwent a subversive change. In the previous story, the male protagonist was a loser, but he still failed to counterattack successfully. After changing one word, the male protagonist not only proved his ability in society, but also remained loyal to his wife. The ex-girlfriend lost a potential dark horse who was serious and responsible for his feelings. Think about it seriously. Fong Yen said. Jiang Qin nodded and agreed, lying on the table in silence. Fong Yen didn't pay attention. He held a copy of The Classic of Tea alone and read it with relish. I have a picture in my mind. Jiang Qin said aloud. What? The picture of the man and his ex-girlfriend. The picture of the man and his current wife. He is really a good man. Jiang Qin said. Like me? Different from you. You don't respect me again. Isn't it enough for my mother to respect you? Mr. Fong. Jiang Qin looked at Fong Yen with bright eyes. What do you want to say? I understand what you mean. The girl smiled proudly, her smile was sweet and soft. It's good that you understand. Fong Yen also smiled. Every paragraph of text has a door of life. If you can find its door of life, there will be no problem that can baffle you. Life is the same. Jiang Qin giggled. This is too big. Once you understand it, you will understand it everywhere. You are so stupid. Jiang Qin said coquettishly. Fong Yen rushed to the school by bus early in the morning and found that the school gate was overcrowded. A large number of students gathered together, pointing and chattering, not knowing what happened. Fong Yen quickly ran towards the crowd, pulled a boy's school uniform and asked, Student, what happened? The boy turned back unhappily and said, Please, can't you see it yourself? The front is blocked, I can't see it. What does it have to do with me if you can't see it? The boy said and turned back. Students these days really don't know how to respect their teachers. Fang Yen thought angrily in his heart. He patted the boy's shoulder again. The boy turned back angrily and found that the annoying guy was looking at him with a smile. Student, what happened in front? Are you crazy? I have a card. Fang Yen waved the Rosefinch secondary teacher card in front of the boy. Fang Yen. Teacher? Call me teacher or Mr. Fang. Fang Yen said with a straight face. Class is about to start, why are you crowding at the school gate? Go back to the classroom and prepare. What happened in front? Mr. Fang. Someone is looking for you. Looking for me? Yes. They said you hit someone. The boy stuttered. The children of leaders like Zheng Guodong could ignore the teacher, Fang Yen, but if an ordinary student insulted the teacher, the consequences would be very serious. The boy was really scared now. I hit someone? Fang Yen was stunned for a moment and laughed. How could I not hit someone? Fang Yen was a Tai Chi master. He practiced with his brothers at home every day. How could there be no injury in a competition? He not only hit someone, but he was also beaten. The knowledge he learned was very comprehensive. The boy was even more scared and wanted to hide as far as possible. Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang. Someone pulled Fang Yan's clothes from behind. Fang Yan turned around and saw the security guard, Baldy, looking at him anxiously with a bald head and said, Mr. Fang, you are here. These people have been blocking the school gate for more than half an hour. They can't be driven away. Talk, talk, talk. Baldy paused for a long time and finally said, they said blood for blood. Blood for blood? Whoever took their blood should return it. They said you took it, Baldy said. Why did I take their blood? Fang Yen laughed. I don't know them. You know them, Baldy said. They're here for you. They even put up a banner saying that debts must be paid, and murder must be paid with one's life. And there are reporters interviewing them. Baldy, clear the way, Fang Yen shouted. Okay, Baldy agreed and shouted, make way, make way, make way, let the security team handle the work. Then, he led Fang Yen out of the crowd and cleared a path. Fang Yen was elated when he saw the person who was surrounded by the crowd. He really knew these people. They were Brother Wolf and his gang. The last time Brother Wolf brought people to stop Fang Yen, they were scared away by Fang Yen. Why did they come again this time? Brother Wolf was not there, but there were a few of his men holding a big red banner. On the banner was written, Violent teacher hits people. Blood for blood. There was a stretcher on the ground, and on the stretcher was a little blonde. The blonde's head was wrapped in gauze like a mummy. Blood was still seeping out of the gauze. His face was full of blood, and he looked terrible. He did not have long to live. Fang Yen was angry. He took a big step forward, grabbed the banner, and threw it on the ground. He scolded, I can tolerate your revenge, but I can't tolerate you writing wrong words on the banner. He squatted down and used his finger to touch the blood on the blonde's face. He added a side to the taste of blood for blood. Blood for blood, Fang Yen said to the blonde seriously. Chapter 42. The blonde thought that Fang Yen was going to beat him up. His body tensed up, and he thought that if Fang Yen dared to wave his fist, he would shout for help. Anyway, there were so many students and reporters around. That bastard would not dare to do anything to him. The blonde was afraid. At that time, he picked up the beer bottle and was about to stab him. He didn't know what happened, but the broken pieces of the bottle were in his hands. Then, he witnessed a miracle with his own eyes. He broke the beer bottle piece by piece. When he went back, the blonde secretly tried. No matter how much strength he used, he could not break the bottle. Not even a trace. However, Fang Yan did not make a move on him. He only stretched out his finger and gently poked his forehead, just like how his girlfriend poked his head and said, "You're so annoying." He wrote with his own blood? The blonde was angry and felt insulted. However, when he thought that Li Du had only written and did not do anything to him, his heart felt warm like spring again. He understands me, Blondie thought to himself. There was the excitement of meeting a bosom friend in a drunken mess. That's him. A gangster pointed at Fang Yan and shouted. He's the one who hit my brother. Yes, yes. I saw it with my own eyes. He hit someone. And he's a school teacher. How could he hit someone so casually? Would such a teacher punish the students? The students must be having a hard time, right? Amid the shouting of the gangsters, a few reporters with microphones squeezed over and asked anxiously, "Are you the person involved, Fang Yan? Someone reported you for hurting someone in a bar. Is there such a thing? Are you a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary? Do teachers often go to bars too?" Fang Yan finally understood that Brother Wolf and the others had changed their attack pattern. After they could not win in an argument, they wanted to use public opinion to tarnish his reputation and make him unemployed from Rosefinch Secondary, or even the entire education industry. Just think, which school would be willing to recruit a teacher with a history of violence? Even if the school agreed, the students wouldn't agree. "I'm Fang Yan, a teacher at this school," Fang Yan said loudly to the reporter's camera. "I don't hang out in bars often. Strictly speaking, that was the only time I've been there. One of my students was having a birthday party at a bar. The students' parents were worried, so they asked me to go with them to have a look." Fang Yan glanced at Blondie and said, "I didn't hit him, but he wanted to hit me, but he missed." When the camera turned to Blondie, he lowered his head in shame. This was too humiliating. "I did hit someone. It was their boss, Brother Wolf." Brother Wolf was said to be a very powerful member of a gang in Huacheng. When he was dancing on the dance floor, he harassed and molested a female student. This was beyond my understanding. Perhaps it was because of my profession, but I had a natural closeness and affection towards students. I couldn't just watch them do evil. Even though they had a lot of people, even though they were hooligans, even though they had countless ways to take revenge on me, I had to stand up for my students. I had to protect my students from harm. Fang Yan's sharp eyes scanned the audience and said firmly, "This is the basic professional quality of a teacher." Clap, 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 the students applauded enthusiastically. The hooligans were anxious. Weren't they here to extort money? Why was the wind blowing in his direction in the blink of an eye? The hooligans had no intelligence, but the reporters who were hired with a high salary wouldn't be led astray by Fang Yan's few words. "Mr. Fang, you said that a student's parents invited you to accompany their child to a bar? May I ask, are the students boys or girls?" A young reporter wearing small glasses asked aloud. "Girls," Fang Yan said. "In my eyes, students don't differentiate between boys and girls. There's only one difference between them, and that is, good students and bad students. You said that there's a classmate called Brother Wolf who molested your student. Do you have any evidence?" "They said that I hit someone. Do they have any evidence?" Fang Yan pointed at the blood on the blonde's head and said, "The blood is real. However, what happened a few days ago is still bloody. He didn't bleed to death. Even a woman wouldn't dare to do this when she's on her period." The blonde was about to cry. "Big brother, can you not always bully me? I'm just a group of actors. I was forced by the boss to act in this role. We have a piece of information in our hands." A female reporter interrogated. "In the information, you were hugging a girl and dancing. Is that the girl you were talking about?" As the female reporter spoke, she held up a color photo for Fang Yan to see. Although the photo was a bit blurry, it was still possible to make out Fang Yan's face when he was facing the camera. Fang Yan felt a dull pain as if someone had hit him hard on the head. "They have a photo? Why would they have a photo?" At that time, the scene was so dark and the lights were flickering. Who would have thought of taking a photo with their phone? Wait. Fang Yan quickly understood. If they had a photo, there was only one possibility, a screenshot from the bar. The video was recorded 24/7. After they got the video, they only needed to edit the clearer images when the lights were flickering. Since Brother Wolf had a strong background, it was not surprising that he could get the video from the bar. They only needed to keep the evidence that was beneficial to them and delete all the other videos. Even if they called the police, it would be useless. The fact that the gangsters had an IQ was really scary. The female reporter raised the photo in her hand and asked loudly, "Teacher Fang Yan, is your relationship with this girl normal? Does the students' parents know about your relationship?" Because Rosefinch Secondary had a strong female leader, Lu Chaoga, no one smoked in the meeting room every time there was a high-level meeting. Those who were of a lower rank than Lu Chaoga did not dare to smoke. Those who were of a higher rank had to take care of the feelings of their female colleagues and deliberately did not smoke. In the workplace, women more or less had a certain advantage. The more beautiful a woman was, the more advantages she had. This is too much. This is a disgrace to our Rosefinch Secondary. How could a proper Rosefinch Secondary teacher do such a thing? I feel sick just thinking about it. How old are those children? How could he do it? We have to think of a way to save them. The reporters are still waiting at the door. Li Ziqiang did not speak. Lu Chaoga did not speak. Zhang Xiaofeng also did not speak. Everyone else was making a ruckus, but these few people did not say anything. This time, we must fire Fang Yan. One mouse spoils the whole pot of soup. Another vice principal said. Yes, Vice Principal Wang is right. Our Rosefinch's reputation cannot be destroyed by a scumbag, someone agreed. Li Ziqiang glanced at Lu Chaoga and asked with a smile, "Principal Lu, what do you think?" In the past, Li Ziqiang did everything possible to expel Fang Yan from the school, but Lu Chaoga protected him time and time again. The two of them were already enemies. Now, Fang Yan made such a serious mistake, but Li Ziqiang did not say anything about expelling him. Instead, he asked for Lu Chaoga's opinion. Those who did not know better would think that the two of them were ready to form an alliance. "I respect everyone's opinion," Lu Chaoga said expressionlessly. She knew what Li Ziqiang meant. The reporters had already thrown out the photos. It would be difficult to clear Fang Yan's name. If Fang Yan really made such a mistake, then there was no doubt that he would be expelled. One Lu Chaoga couldn't protect him, even 10 Lu Chaoga wouldn't be able to protect him. Not only would he be expelled from Rosefinch, but there would also be no place for him in the entire Huaqing. If she still stood out to protect him at this time, it would only make the people in the conference room doubt her intelligence and think that she was just an emotional brat. She might lose a lot of support if she was immature in politics. After listening to Lu Chaoga's reply, Li Ziqiang sneered in his heart. He thought to himself that this woman really had some skills. Unfortunately, this time Fang Yan was in trouble, so he could not drag her down with him. Li Ziqiang looked at Zhang Xiaofeng and said, "Principal Zhang, this matter is very urgent. We have to come up with a solution as soon as possible. If we don't deal with it in time, the reporters will make false reports or the students will post it on the internet. We will be in a very passive position. My suggestion is to remove Fang Yan's name from the school and reserve the right to hold him accountable." Zhang Xiaofeng lowered his head and didn't answer. No one knew what he was thinking. "Do you think this punishment is too light?" Li Ziqiang secretly thought in his heart. Of course, we have to cooperate with the police to investigate Fang Yan and see which school he brought students to the bar to dance. See if there are any students from our Rosefinch. I agree with Director Li's suggestion. I agree. I also agree. The leaders on Li Ziqiang's side expressed their views one after another. Zhang Xiaofeng put down the pen in his hand, cleared his throat and said aloud, "Before the matter is investigated clearly, we are in a hurry to expel our teacher from the school. Isn't this too hasty?" Won't it give people the feeling that there is something fishy going on? Everyone was stunned. Didn't Zhang Xiaofeng also want to expel Fang Yan? Why did he stand up for Fang Yan now? They looked at Lu Xiaoge in horror. Could it be that the two of them had reached some sort of agreement? If this was the case, it was really hard for them to change the decision made by the principal and the vice principal. However, when they found that even Lu Xiaoge looked at Zhang Xiaofeng with a surprised expression, things may be far more complicated than they thought. What the hell happened? This was the question in everyone's heart. I agree with Principal Zhang's opinion. Lu Xiaoge raised her head and said straightforwardly. Chapter 43. Others laugh at me for being crazy, but I laugh at them for not seeing through me. Looking at Fang Yan sitting in front of her, Lu Xiaoge suddenly thought of Tang Yin's poem. When she really couldn't sleep at night and didn't have suitable books to pass the time, Lu Xiaoge had thought about the boring question of what kind of person her new colleague, Fang Yan, was. He had no respect for his superiors, was audacious, had a sharp tongue, did not follow the rules, never played by the rules, was frivolous, like a hooligan, and was like a third-level hooligan. He matched all the genes that Lu Xiaoge hated the most. However, he knew how to arrange flowers and could trim the breathtaking Stairway to Heaven. He knew potted plants and could express the opinion that art was the heart of the heart. He knew how to recognize good tea and could distinguish its quality at a glance. He was knowledgeable and could recite Laozi's 5,000 characters backwards. He had a sense of innovation and brought students to Sparrow River to learn Farewell to Cambridge again. He was flirtatious and talented. What words should be used to describe such a person? Elegant flirtatious? Lu Xiaoge had admired him, and hated him. He had even thought of expelling him from the school when he repeatedly caused trouble for Lu Xiaoge. However, she had never associated him with the word pervert. His eyes are very clean. This was Lu Xiaoge's first impression of Fang Yan when she saw him. This kind of gaze could only be seen in children. The eyes of adults had long been polluted by society and the world. Therefore, when she saw Fang Yan's eyes, she felt surprised and pleasantly surprised. However, now he was facing the accusation of molesting a female student. Is this true? Lu Xiaoge asked. Yes, Fang Yan said with absolute certainty. There was no hesitation. She even had the photos in her hands, so there was no point in denying it. Besides, he didn't want to lie to Lu Xiaoge. He didn't want to lie to her, just as he knew that she wouldn't lie to him about many things. Why do I have such a feeling? Fang Yan thought about it seriously. Perhaps they were all extremely proud people. Disdain. Yes, he disdained lying. Lu Xiaoge raised her eyebrows slightly and said, You took girls to a bar to dance? You're wrong. Fang Yan laughed. A girl took me to a bar to dance. Lu Xiaoge frowned even more and said coldly, Do you think anyone will believe you? Do you believe me? Fang Yan looked at Lu Xiaoge's delicate and beautiful facial features and asked aloud. Lu Xiaoge's thoughts paused for a moment. She never thought that Fang Yan would ask her such a question. Do you believe me? She thought about it seriously, and the answer was yes. She believed. I believe you, Lu Xiaoge said. I'm the only one who believes it. Is that important? It's very important. Fang Yan opened his mouth and smiled brightly. I don't care about people, I don't care about what they're thinking. Lu Xiaoge wanted to ask, Am I someone you care about? But she didn't say anything in the end. Because she felt that asking this question would sound like flirting. She was the principal, and he was a teacher. They were colleagues who were superior and subordinate, not in the same bed. There are some things you already know. Fang Yan explained. The school's logistics department refused to assign me a room, so I rented a small room outside. The landlady has a daughter who is in the 3rd grade of No. 1 middle school. She treated me to dinner every night and asked me to tutor her daughter. The landlady's cooking was delicious, and I was really short of money. The temptation was too great, and I couldn't refuse. Why did you go to a bar? Lu Chaoga asked. Tutoring wasn't a problem. There were many teachers at Rosefinch Secondary who taught students outside. The school wouldn't say much if they knew. However, you took a female student to a bar to dance, and someone took a photo of you. This was a big problem. That night, the girl had a classmate's birthday, and she invited me to the birthday party. I agreed. Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga and said, "You want to ask me why I didn't stop them, right?" I wouldn't stop them. Because I knew that stopping them wouldn't have any effect. It would only make these rebellious children worse. I followed them to protect her, and I believed that I wouldn't do anything excessive. And then there was a fight? Those people are hooligans. Fang Yan said. You can see it from their appearance. I can't just sit back and do nothing when they do evil. Lu Chaoga's fingers tapped on the table, and she said awkwardly, "The current situation is very bad for you." I understand. Fang Yan nodded. Even if I can prove that those hooligans are hooligans, even if I can prove that those hooligans are savage, I still can't wash away the dirty water on myself. I hugged a female student and danced. This is unforgivable in anyone's eyes. Kill 800 enemies, lose 1,000. That's the kind of person I am. Since you understand everything. Lu Chaoga looked sharply at Fang Yan and said, "You know Principal Zhang Xiaofeng?" Yes. Fang Yan nodded. He was a little surprised at Lu Chaoga's sudden question. Who in Rosefinch Secondary doesn't know him? I mean, do you know him? Lu Chaoga was a little dissatisfied with Fang Yan's answer. She felt that he was avoiding the important point. What do you mean? Fang Yan laughed. You suspect that I'm two-timing? Lu Chaoga's cold face became even colder. She didn't like to be described as a two-timing. Today's meeting was to discuss how to deal with you, Lu Chaoga said with incomparable frankness. I didn't protect you. Principal Zhang spoke up for you. Otherwise, you would have been expelled by the school. Is that so? Fang Yan was stunned. He sent me a girl. That was the only time I had close contact with him. I don't understand why he spoke up for me. Lu Chaoga was silent, as if she was pondering the authenticity of Fang Yan's words. She knew Zhang Xiaofeng's personality very well. He was a guy who played a balance game between the various forces. It was also because of this that his position as principal was as stable as Mount Tai. He was a sly fox. If there was no personal benefit, he wouldn't side with any side. In a situation where Li Mingxiang's department was trying their best to kick Fang Yan out of the school, he stood out to clearly support Fang Yan. What was the reason? This time, she and Zhang Xiaofeng joined forces to protect Fang Yan. However, she knew very well that they didn't belong to the same camp. There was even a great conflict of views between them. In that case, Fang Yan's position as a chess piece was very important. If Fang Yan secretly sided with Zhang Xiaofeng, or if Fang Yan had a close relationship with Zhang Xiaofeng, she wouldn't hesitate to abandon him. After a long time, Lu Chaoga asked, "What do you think?" "I won't leave." Fang Yan said. "Maybe one day I will leave Rosefinch, but definitely not now." "To prove your innocence?" Lu Chaoga sneered. Such an answer couldn't surprise her. In order to clear their names, many people said high-sounding words but did shameful things. This was human nature. To prove that girl's innocence. Fang Yan said softly. She's not as bad as those reporters say. When Zhang Xiaofeng pushed open the office door, the room was filled with the fragrance of tea. A young girl in a school uniform raised her slender wrist, holding a porcelain kettle and pouring water into a blue and white cup. Her movements were calm and graceful, as if she had done it hundreds or thousands of times. "Uncle Zhang, you came back at the right time. The second tea has just started to taste." The girl smiled sweetly. Zhang Xiaofeng put the folder in his hand on the desk and ran to the sink to wash his hands. Then, he walked to the sofa in front of the girl and sat down. He said reproachfully, How can you let Etienne make tea here? Don't you have a secretary? If you want tea, ask the secretary to make it for you. Uncle Zhang, you helped me so much. I can't repay you, so I can only make you a cup of tea. Qin Etienne said indifferently. The tea is Uncle Zhang's tea, and the water is Rosefinch's water. Uncle Zhang, you won't blame me for being stingy, right? Why would I? Zhang Xiaofeng waved his hand. Not everyone has the fortune to drink tea personally brewed by Etienne. Zhang Xiaofeng picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. He closed his eyes and savored the taste. He sighed and said, "It's soft in the mouth and has a long aftertaste. It's strange. It's the same tea, the same water, but why can't the secretary and I make the same taste? It seems like it has a lot to do with the person who made the tea." If outsiders were to see the principal of Vermilion Bird Middle School speaking to his own school's students like this, their eyes and teeth would probably fall out of their sockets. Wasn't this principal too approachable? Uncle Zhang, you flatter me. The art of tea is broad and profound, and I have only scratched the surface. If you praise me like this, then I will be too proud and complacent to move forward. I believe that others can't move forward, but I don't believe that Etienne can't move forward. Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. Qin Etienne drank the tea in the cup in one gulp, got up and said, "Uncle Zhang, I won't disturb your work." Zhang Xiaofeng quickly stood up and said, "What's there to disturb? Etienne can come and chat with Uncle Zhang whenever she has time. I will welcome you." "Yes, I will," Qin Etienne replied and left the room. Zhang Xiaofeng sent Qin Etienne away and returned to the sofa. He looked at the fragrant De Hong Pao tea in front of him. He was stunned at first, but then he laughed out loud. What an amazing woman. Zhang Xiaofeng sighed. She didn't mention a word and didn't ask anything. She must have calculated that I can help her, right? A son should be like Jiang Junling, and an adopted daughter should be like Qin Etienne. Chapter 44. In the same tea house, in the same location. However, people's states of mind were very different. Fang Yan could feel that Huang Wenxiang, who was sitting opposite him, was looking at him with a strong sense of scrutiny. He could feel this kind of gaze from Lu Zhaoge, and he could feel it from everyone he met. There was a scandal between a male teacher and a female student, and it was a junior high school student. Such an incident was enough to nail him to the pillar of shame. There was a long silence. Huang Wenxiang sighed softly and said, "Mr. Fang, it's not easy." Fang Yan smiled and said, "Do you believe me?" "Yes." Huang Wenxiang pointed at Fang Yan, who was making tea and said, "If it's true, why are you still in the mood to make tea so leisurely? Why? Do you have a plan in mind, or are you prepared for the worst?" Fang Yan brought the teacup to Huang Wenxiang with a pair of bamboo tweezers and said, "Director Huang, do you have any way to help me?" Huang Wenxiang was a senior reporter of Huaxia Metropolis Daily and the director of the Current Affairs Department, so Fang Yan called him Director Huang. Huang Wenxiang shook his head and said, "I also learned about this from my colleagues in the media. They all said that they had some big news in their hands. I asked around and it was said that there was someone behind this incident. According to those guys working state, I'm afraid they have received a lot of writing fees from others." Fang Yan's eyes were piercingly cold, but returned to normal in an instant. He asked, "Do you know who is behind this?" Huang Wenxiang smiled and said, "Mr. Fang, you are young and inexperienced in society. Naturally, the one who started the trouble should be untied. It's enough to bite on one line, right? I'm stupid." Fang Yan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Since I left home, a series of things have happened to me. It seems that elegant things like teaching people how to read and write are really not suitable for me. Fighting and killing is my goal in life." "You can't say that." Huang Haoran solemnly looked at Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, don't be discouraged. You might not understand, but in the eyes of many students, your existence means something. The first time Huang Haoran asked me to do something was because of you." Huang Haoran took a poem that you commented on and recited it over and over again. Huang Haoran was full of praise for your teaching methods and is still trying hard to recite Tao Te Ching backwards. All of this changed after you became a teacher at Vermilion Bird Middle School. In the past, his pride made me proud, and now, his humility made me proud. As a father, I want him to be a humble and cultured person, not a cultured but arrogant person. Huang Haoran told me that he looks forward to language classes every day because you surprise them every class. Huang Wenxiang looked at Fang Yan sincerely and said, I also look forward to the countless surprises you bring to Huang Haoran and countless Huang Haoran. Fang Yan didn't expect Huang Wenxiang to suddenly confess to him. He could feel Huang Wenxiang's sincerity towards him. He could feel Huang Wenxiang's respect for this seemingly incompetent teacher of his. Fang Yan was really touched. I will take care of this matter, Fang Yan said. They think I'm a good teacher, but I don't know if I can be what they think I am. At least, I can't be a bad teacher. I'll talk to my colleagues in the media, and I'll also meet with the education department. Without sufficient evidence, maliciously reporting a love affair between a teacher and a student will have a very negative impact on society as a whole. It will also have a serious impact on the reputation of the teacher and the student. If it's not handled well, it might ruin the student's life. We must be careful with this kind of thing, Huang Wenxiang said. What else can I help with? You don't have to be polite with me. Leave the rest to me. Fang Yan smiled. You're right. Whoever started the trouble needs to untie it. The bald man was very cautious. After coming out of the hospital, he scanned his surroundings. He didn't find anyone suspicious before walking quickly towards a white Volkswagen. He opened the door and got in. The car slowly drove out of the hospital compound. Fang Yan's head appeared at the window of a black van. He pointed at the Volkswagen with the tail number 098 and said, Master, please follow them. No problem, the skinny driver agreed readily and quickly started the car. As long as it's a prey that I, One Sword Peak Racing God, have my eyes on, don't even think about escaping from me. Brother, please remind me, which way did the car turn? The convenience store on the left, Fang Yan said in a bad mood. This One Sword Peak Racing God was too lame. Oh, that kid is playing ambush. Oh, he's going to buy cigarettes. One Sword Peak Racing God reached for the cigarette box and threw it back. He laughed and said, I almost forgot, little brother, you don't smoke. Smoke by yourself. Don't worry about me, Fang Yan said. That won't do. One Sword Peak Racing God shook his head. If you don't smoke, I'll smoke by myself. Isn't that letting you inhale my secondhand smoke? We unlicensed drivers also have professional qualities. Fang Yan decided that he would never talk about professional qualities with others again. The Volkswagen started again, and the van followed closely behind. Brother, are you a detective? What? Fang Yan was stunned. I specialize in investigating cases of husbands keeping mistresses and mistresses, cheating and whatnot, One Sword Peak Racing God said with a smile. Just like Detective Conan. Detective Conan also investigates cheating? I think so. One Sword Peak Racing God was not very sure. You do this kind of job? It sounds very mysterious. You actually guessed it. Fang Yan admitted it. The reason he admitted was because he did not want One Sword Peak Racing God to ask more questions. He pointed to the Volkswagen owner in front and said, That guy's mistress hired me to find out if he went back to have dinner with his wife tonight. Are you really a detective? Are you still hiring? It depends on your performance. Just watch. One Sword Peak Racing God stepped on the gas, and the van rushed toward the Volkswagen. Slow down, and be careful. Fang Yan quickly reminded. The van stopped in front of a nightclub called Yulong. Fang Yan looked at the rows of white thighs in front of the nightclub and frowned again. He was not familiar with this kind of place. Do you need help? One Sword Peak Racing God asked. Not for the time being. Fang Yan paid the rest of the fare and said, "Leave a business card and wait for the interview notice." Good, good, good. I'm on call. One Sword Peak racing god was very excited. You don't know, but I admire Detective Conan. Bang! Fang Yan had already opened the door of the van and strode toward the entrance of Yulong nightclub. When he was about to reach the door, he put the phone in his hand to his ear and said loudly, "Mr. Wang, I'm going up. You drink first, don't wait for me." "I understand, we won't go back until we are drunk tonight." When the manager saw the guests, she quickly came to greet them. Fang Yan waved his hand at her, and she immediately retreated. It seemed that this was a regular customer of Yulong nightclub, and a friend had already booked a private room. The bald man was waiting for the elevator, accompanied by a girl in a red cheongsam. The two seemed to be very familiar with each other. The bald man made some touching gestures, and the girl just pushed him away, but she was not angry. Fang Yan put the phone in his pocket, walked behind the bald man, patted him on the shoulder, and shouted, "Brother Bald." The bald man turned around and saw Fang Yan standing behind him with a face full of horror. When he opened his mouth to speak, he found that his shoulder was in pain. The pain was so painful that he could not speak and could not breathe smoothly. In the blink of an eye, there were dense beads of sweat on his forehead. Fang Yan used the golden bell mysterious finger to press the Mingmen point on the bald man's shoulder and said with a smile, "Brother Bald, are you also looking for Brother Wolf?" "Brother Wolf called me and asked me to come here to see him." The woman in the cheongsam saw the handsome Fang Yan, and her eyes immediately became bright. She asked with a smile, "This handsome guy is unfamiliar? First time here? Do you know Brother Da?" "Yes. The bald man and I have been good brothers for many years," Fang Yan said with a smile. The woman pinched the bald man's arm and said, "Brother Bald is really not good enough. He has such a handsome friend and he did not bring him to play. He is afraid that you will play me bad," Fang Yan said with a shy smile. "How can that be? What kind of people does Brother Bald think we are?" The girl said coquettishly. "We will treat you well." The elevator arrived, and the girl rushed into the elevator and directly pressed the number 3. Fang Yan knew that his guess was right. Brother Wolf was in the Yulong nightclub, and the room they were in should be on the 3rd floor. The bald man only felt that his body was weak, and he did not even have the strength to walk. He wanted to sit on the ground, but Fang Yan's hand lightly rested on his shoulder, as if it was his life. His body was completely out of his control. When he was in pain, his old lover was flirting with Fang Yan, which made his body even more uncomfortable. "Bitch, see how I will deal with you later," the bald man cursed in his heart. The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor, and the cheongsam girl led the way. The music was loud, and rows of long-legged girls were led by the manager in black uniforms to different rooms. Only when they were ordered by a customer would they end this necessary but humiliating tour. Although Fang Yan had been holding the bald man's shoulder, it did not attract other people's attention. There were many people in the nightclub who called each other brothers, so this kind of behavior was really nothing. Boom! The cheongsam girl opened the door of room 308, turned to Fang Yan and the bald man, and said, "Brother Wolf is inside, you can go in." "Thank you," Fang Yan said gratefully. "You are more polite than them." The girl winked at Fang Yan and said, "Brother Bald has never said thank you to me." "That is because Brother Bald feels closer to you." As Fang Yan spoke, he had already walked into the room with Brother Bald in his arms. Brother Wolf was hugging 2 women and singing, and he did not feel the danger. Chapter 45. There were more than a dozen men and women in the dimly lit room. Everyone's eyes were either occupied by the beauty in their arms or the MTV on the big screen. No one noticed the bald-headed man and Fang Yan, who was following behind the bald-headed man. In such a situation, Brother Baldy did not know what to do. He did not know whether to stand or sit. He could only turn around and wait for Fang Yan's instructions. Fang Yan winked at him, then hugged him and sat in the leftmost corner of the room. A girl with an oval face was ordering songs. Seeing the bald guy sit down, she said fawningly, "Brother duh, what song do you want to sing? Let me help you." "No need," the bald guy said with a dark face. "Don't be like that." The girl thought the bald guy was in a bad mood. She said with a smile, "I'll order your favorite song, Invincible." Invincible was the theme song of Young and Dangerous 3, Invincible, during the golden age of Hong Kong movies. As long as one was in the underworld, Zheng Yijian's character, Chen Haonan, was their idol. They were extremely familiar with every song he sang, and many veteran fans could even memorize every one of his classic lines. Baldy was also a hardcore fan of Chen Haonan. In the past, every time he came to the nightclub, he would pick Zheng Yijian's Invincible, Blood is Burning, Blade's Shadow, and other songs to roar to his heart's content with his brothers. For a moment, they even felt that being a gangster was the sexiest, manliest, and most promising thing in the world. Of course, when they had no money to pay the rent and were hungry, they would wonder if they had gone the wrong way. But today's situation was a little different. The girl said she would order Invincible for the bald guy, which made the bald guy feel humiliated and angry. "If I'm invincible, why am I being controlled by someone like a dog on a chain and being ordered around by someone else?" Seeing the bald guy's murderous eyes, the oval face was a little scared. He muttered, "If you don't want to sing, then don't sing. Why are you looking at me like that? Just order whatever you want to sing." After saying that, the girl got up and ran away. She instinctively felt danger. "Be gentle with girls," Fang Yen said to the bald guy. After thinking for a while, he added, "Unless that woman is called Yi-Ro." Baldy's mouth turned into an O shape. "Who was Yi-Ro? She sounds like a very gentle girl." Fang Yen poked the bald man's shoulder and said, "Order a song for me." Baldy looked at Fang Yen in shock. "Big brother, whether you want to beat or scold me, just state your attitude. Why are you dragging your feet? Is this where you sing? Burning Blood?" Fang Yen pondered for a while and chose a song that suited the occasion. Singing Chen Haonan's songs made it easier to mingle with the hooligans. The Baldy had no choice but to choose the song that Fang Yen requested. Brother Wolf's song, "Why Can't People in Love Be Together?" came to an end and won warm applause from everyone in the private room. The music of Blood on the Fire started. Brother Wolf did not put down the microphone. Instead, he sang along with the rhythm. "You're the one I can't find. A hopeless attitude. A man in peril, you'll make it." Fang Yen had originally wanted to sing alone, but under the current circumstances, he could only sing a chorus with Brother Wolf. "Time is merciless, but I'm still willing. Breaking a new story for you, love and righteousness. I know today, love and righteousness. I don't need to doubt again." The more they sang, the more emotional they became, and the more they sang, the more passionate they became. One had a rough and hoarse voice, while the other had a standard and clear Cantonese. The combination had an unimaginable sense of beauty. At the end of the song, cheers, whistles, and applause rang out wildly. Brother Wolf dropped the microphone, picked up the wine glass in front of him, and shouted, "Good. Too good. Who sang with me just now? Let's have a toast." Fang Yen picked up someone's wine glass in front of him and said, it's me. You're a new brother. You don't look familiar," a big fatso beside Fang Yen said. As he spoke, one of his chubby hands was groping the chest of the girl in his arms. This made Fang Yen extremely dissatisfied with him. "Respect the girl," Brother Wolf ran over with a glass of wine. When he saw Fang Yan's face halfway, his thoughts stopped for a moment. He stepped forward out of habit and almost fell flat on his face. "Brother Wolf, are you okay?" The punks saw that Brother Wolf almost fell and rushed over to help him. Brother Wolf stared at Fang Yen fiercely and shouted, "Fang Yen, it's me." Fang Yen waved happily. Baldy looked at Fang Yen as if he was looking at an idiot. What was this guy trying to do? The punks standing beside Brother Wolf were also stunned. When did the enemy break into their team? Why are you here? Brother Wolf stared fiercely at Baldy, who was sitting next to Fang Yen, and asked fiercely. Fang Yen pointed to Baldy and said, Brother Baldy brought me here. We went to the hospital together to see Blondie. He said Brother Wolf was singing here, so he invited me to come and play. Baldy. Brother Wolf gritted his teeth and called out Baldy's nickname. If looks could kill, Baldy's bald head would have burst open and fallen to the ground. Brother Wolf, I didn't invite him. Baldy was anxious and hurriedly explained. If the boss misunderstood, how would he be able to survive in the underworld in the future? He followed me. He followed me to the hospital, and then here. I didn't say Brother Wolf was singing here, and I didn't invite him. It doesn't matter how you came. Fang Yen waved his hand generously and said, the key is that we hit it off. Come, Brother Wolf, let me give you a toast, to the song, Blood is Burning. 1,000 songs are not enough when we meet. Let's sing a few more in a while. From tonight onwards, all the previous grievances will be written off. As soon as Fang Yen lifted his foot, Brother Wolf hurriedly stepped back. He stared at Fang Yen cautiously and said, Fang Yen, I'm warning you, don't mess around, or I'll call the police. Call the police? Fang Yen was so angry that his balls were cramping. Your father is a gangster, okay? You're AF * king gangster, okay? You're black and the police are white. Black and white are incompatible. You're enemies. How can you call the police? In a society governed by law, do you still have professional ethics? Seeing Fang Yan's expression change instantly, Brother Wolf became even more cautious. He stood in the middle of a group of gangsters and shouted, Fang Yan, get out quickly. You're not welcome here, I'm not leaving, Fang Yan said. I won't leave even if you hit me. Unless you tell me that our previous grievances are written off. Fang Yan had come to look for Brother Wolf to solve the problem. The problem had not been solved. Everyone had not shook hands, drank a glass of wine together, smashed the glass and hugged each other. You punch my chest and call me an Iron Man. I punch you and call you a good brother. Then, you punch my stomach and call me a life for a life from now on. I kick your crotch and call you a motherf * cur. Brother Wolf was about to cry. Only an idiot would hit you. You're a human trap. Do you think we don't know that? Brother Wolf, who is this kid? Brothers, F * CK this guy up. Coming to our Master C's place to behave atrociously. I think you don't want to see the sun tomorrow. Brother Wolf, let's call the police. In the private room, there were a few people who saw Fang Yen for the first time. Therefore, they did not know how good he was and were prepared to report his name to scare him away or ask their brothers to beat him up. However, the men brought by Brother Wolf who had dealt with Fang Yen before were all in favor of the suggestion of calling the police. If he was not heartbroken, who would step on his dignity? You guys sing, Fang Yen said casually. He waved to Brother Wolf and said, Brother Wolf, come here. Let's have a good talk. Brother Wolf did not move. He was afraid that he would fall into the wolf's mouth again. Fang Yen sneered and said sarcastically, What? The famous Brother Wolf in Jianghu was so daring? I think you should change your nickname. Don't call me Brother Wolf in the future. Brother Mouse is more suitable. You're going too far. Brother Wolf was provoked and shouted with a red face, What do you want to talk about? Why do you want to frame me? Fang Yen asked. He had always been a very frank and straightforward man. I don't know what you're talking about, Brother Wolf denied. Let me give you a lesson, Fang Yen said. I was taken to a bar by my students to sing, and you made a move on my students on the dance floor. Was the first round your fault? As a teacher, of course, I can't watch my students be bullied by hooligans. Don't be angry, aren't you a hooligan? At that time, you were shouting that men are not hooligans and women are not crazy, right? I asked you to apologize, but you didn't want to. Then you challenged me to a duel. I beat you up. You molested my female students, and I beat you up. This second round, we're even, right? Brother Wolf did not read much, but he still felt that he had been fooled by Fang Yan. How could things be settled like this? 2 days ago, you brought some people to the gate of Rosefinch Secondary and waited for me. We had a good talk and shook hands. Although you don't deserve to be my friend, I thought that the past was written off. In the end, you did this to me. Why did you ask people to carry Blondie, who was smeared with human blood, to the gate of my school? Why did you ask those reporters to come? Do you want to ruin my reputation? Do you want to kick me out of school? Immature, Fang Yan said with a sigh. The way you deal with the problem is too immature. Think about it, if I lose my job, what will I do? A hooligan. If I become a hooligan and am no longer bound by school and moral standards, do you think you will have a good life? Brother Wolf was shocked. Listening to Fang Wei's analysis, it seemed that he had indeed made a very serious mistake. If the guy in front of him became a hooligan, wouldn't all hooligans have to turn over a new leaf? Chapter 46. Do you think we are enemies or opponents? No, we are friends, not to that extent. However, we are definitely not enemies. I will be my teacher, and you will be your hooligan. From now on, we will mind our own business. Let's go. Fang Yan waved his hand and looked at Brother Wolf with a kind face. It was as if a grandmother wolf was looking at her own child. Take Blondie back and say hello to those reporters. Then, write me a letter of apology. Tell them that when you were harassing the female students in the bar, I acted bravely for a just cause, and that you held a grudge against me for taking revenge. Those photos were photoshopped by you. After my painstaking education, you finally realized your mistakes and decided to turn over a new leaf. You'll become a good hooligan with ideals, morals, and goals. You won't slander others for no reason. Fang Yan thought for a moment and said, it doesn't matter if you write the wrong words. The more the wrong words, the more it proves that this letter of apology is written by you. Everyone will forgive you. Who would criticize a hooligan for writing the wrong words? Brother Wolf's throat moved, but he could not say a word. Before meeting Fang Yan, he never knew that he was a man who could not speak. Brother Wolf did not speak, and the hooligans did not speak either. They were still waiting for their boss to make a decision. Since we are so familiar with each other, just say what you want to say. Don't have any scruples, Fang Yan said with a smile. No way, Brother Wolf said. No way. Why not? Because. Brother Wolf had something difficult to say. Originally, he also wanted to keep the peace. It was fine to suffer a loss and lose face. Who asked them to beat others? However, his boss, Master Qing, intervened in this matter and told them to make the matter bigger and ruin Fang Yan's reputation. How could he stop just because he said so? People in the pugilistic world have no choice. He deeply understood the weight of this sentence. Brother Wolf said no means no. Why the f*ck do you have so much nonsense to say? Big Fatso, who was sitting next to Fang Yan, scolded angrily. Do you know where you are? Do you know whose turf this is? Do you believe that I'll get someone to break your legs and throw you out? They were really too rude. Even a stray cat or dog dared to run in front of them and make noise. Paw. Fang Yan raised his arm and splashed the glass of beer on Fatso's face. The champagne-colored liquid soaked her hair and flowed down her cheeks, filling the room with the fragrance of malted wheat. Little bastard, how dare you splash it on me? Fatso was furious. He pushed the woman in his arms away, grabbed the wine bottle on the table, and smashed it at Fang Yan's head. Whoosh! The beer bottle flew out of his hand, and with a whistling sound, it flew toward Fang Yan. Whoosh! Fang Yan reached out and grabbed the red wine bottle in his hand. Then, he spun his body 90 degrees, and the red wine bottle made an intimate contact with Fatso's fat head. Gotcha! The wine bottle was broken, and so was Fatso's head. Both sides were injured. Fatso's nickname was Four Eyes. He was known as Brother Four, and the younger generation also called him Master Four. He was the owner of the Yulong nightclub, and he was also a person who made his debut at the same time as Brother Wolf. Tonight, Brother Wolf came to Yulong to spend, and as an old friend, he naturally came to accompany him. He did not expect his luck to be so bad that someone actually came to his territory to make trouble. A fight broke out at the slightest disagreement. Fatso was indeed a person who had seen big scenes. He was hit on the head and was dripping with blood, but he still stood there as steady as Mount Tai. Cripple him. Fatso covered his head with his hand and roared angrily. The boss was injured, and the lackeys around the boss naturally had to take revenge for him. Without waiting for Fatso's order, two of the lackeys rushed towards Fong Yen with a beer bottle and a knife. Like wolves and tigers. Fong Yen stood still and turned in a circle with his left foot as the center. He turned to the left and just happened to avoid the attack of the beer bottle. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the guy who was regarded as the trump card by the gangsters. He turned to the right and just happened to avoid the stab of the dagger in his chest. He stretched out his hand again and grabbed another hooligan in his hand. The two struggled with all their might, but they could not escape from Fong Yan's grasp. A sky full of spinning tops. Fong Yen pulled their arms and spun them together. After 3 circles, the two could no longer keep up with Fong Yan's speed. Their feet left the ground and they were dragged into the air by Fong Yen. Go. As Fong Yen spoke, he had already let go of them. The two gangsters screamed and flew towards where Brother Wolf was standing. Bang! Brother Wolf and his men reached out to catch them, but the power of Tai Chi on the two gangsters was not completely removed, and a large number of them were smashed and injured. The gangsters lay on the ground screaming and groaning. Fong Yen walked to Brother Wolf with a smile and said, "Can we talk now?" Brother Wolf looked at Fong Yen in horror and said, I can't promise you." "You mean, no matter what I do today, you will insist on tarnishing my reputation and driving me out of school, right?" Fong Yen asked with a serious face. "I have no choice," Brother Wolf said in a low voice. "The leader has come forward. What can I do?" "You have no choice but to do evil." Fong Yen sneered. "It seems that you also have unspeakable difficulties. Should I forgive you? Even if you ruin my reputation and make me miserable?" This guy's words are really mean. Brother Wolf thought in his heart. You also know that I am a very easy person to talk to. If you can't talk to me, I will beat you up. Fong Yen said in an unfriendly tone. It seems that we can't talk to each other. I really can't do it, Brother Wolf said. This matter is no longer under my control. Under whose control? Brother Wolf did not speak. How would he dare to betray his own boss? Fong Yen rushed over quickly and punched Brother Wolf in the chest. Brother Wolf saw Fong Yan's movement clearly and also reached out to block. It was empty. His hand was empty, and his eyes deceived him. Bang! He received a solid punch in the chest, as if he had been hit by a big bell. There was a fishy taste in his throat, and there was a liquid that wanted to spurt out, but was suppressed by something. Like a sprout that was about to break out of the ground, it tried its best but could not break the stone on top of its head. After Fong Yen touched Brother Wolf's body, Brother Wolf became a human sandbag. The Tai Chi entanglement formula was used. Whether Brother Wolf rushed forward or retreated, there was no way to escape from Fong Yan's control. Fong Yen was the blue sky, and Brother Wolf was the stars. Fong Yen was the sea, and Brother Wolf was the boat. Fong Yen punched and kicked, and dozens of unique skills were displayed on Brother Wolf's body. When he finished, Brother Wolf's body could no longer stand, and he lay on the ground shakily. Pfft! The blood that had accumulated in his chest was finally spat out, and Brother Wolf felt a sense of relief. Too tired, Brother Wolf thought in his heart. The men and women in the private room were silent, and everyone looked at the scene in front of them in horror. Who was Brother Wolf? He was a famous gangster in Huacheng. Who was Fatso? He was the big boss of the Yulong nightclub. In the past, they were so high and mighty. Many people present saw with their own eyes that because a new waitress accidentally poured tea on Brother Wolf's new shirt, Brother Wolf picked up the hot teapot and splashed it on the waitress's face. They had also heard rumors that a waitress disobeyed Fatso's guest and was smashed in the head with a wine bottle. In their hearts, Fatso and Brother Wolf were strong, fierce, and undefeatable. However, in front of that young man, they were as fragile as a scarecrow made of paper. When Brother Wolf was beaten by Fong Yen, the gangsters looked at each other, and no one dared to step forward to help. When they finally made up their minds to save their boss even if they were beaten up by Fong Yen had already stopped. This made them feel extremely regretful. While they felt that they could not show their loyalty in front of their boss, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fong Yen once again stepped on Brother Wolf's chest, just like the last time in the bar. "I'm not here to negotiate with you," Fong Yen said coldly. "I'm here to make a request. Remove those reporters and apologize to me publicly. It's not me who wants to mess with you. It's not me who wants to mess with you," Brother Wolf said with a sorry face, his mouth stained with blood. "I'm just following orders. Don't you know who you offended? It's them who want to mess with you, it has nothing to do with me." Fong Yan's eyes were cold as he asked, "Who is it? Beg me? Beg me?" Brother Wolf vomited blood, his face ferocious. "I'll tell you if you kneel down and beg me." The pain brought out the courage in Brother Wolf's bones. He finally overcame his fear of Fong Yen and roared. "I've never kneeled," Fong Yen refused. "Then don't even think about knowing the answer. Fong Yen, you don't know who you offended. You're dead. You're definitely dead." Fong Yen shook his head gently, squatted down and looked at Brother Wolf, who was lying on the ground, and said, "If I were you, I wouldn't provoke the person who can decide your fate at this time." Bang! Fong Yen punched Brother Wolf's left eye. Bang! Fong Yen punched Brother Wolf's right eye again. Bang! 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 Fong Yan's countless punches landed on Sirius's eyes, eyebrows, nose, and mouth. "Stop," a cold voice came from behind. "Move again and I'll kill you." Fong Yen turned around and saw Fatso holding a black pistol in his hand, aiming at his head. Fong Yen raised his hands and said, "You can insult me, but please don't hurt me. Put down the gun and talk." Chapter 47. Seeing that Fong Yen had been conquered by his pistol, Fatso became spirited. He quickly walked up to Fong Yen, laughed and shouted, "Come on. Come on. Hit me. Hit me. Do you dare to hit me again? Hit me here. Hit my face. Slap." Fong Yen slapped Fatso's face. Fatso was stunned. Brother Wolf was stunned. Everyone was stunned. Fatso had traveled far and wide. He started as a gangster and later led dozens of brothers to kill people in the streets. That was how he gained his fame. Taking people's lives, breaking people's hands and feet, he had done many immoral things. Moreover, he was willing to do it. He had encountered countless dangers in his life, but as long as he had a gun in his hand, he could find some bargaining chips or dignity. He had never been as embarrassed as he was today, even when he was pushed to the ground and his back was slashed more than a dozen times. Why did he really hit me? Mr. Fatty couldn't understand. What he meant by this sentence was, "Now that the gun is in my hand, if you dare to touch me, I will shoot you. I heard that you are a teacher, why can't you understand human language?" Mr. Fatty was stunned at first, and then he became angry. He pointed the gun at Fong Yan's head and said fiercely, "Damn you, you want to die." The corner of Fong Yan's eyes glowed red. His originally soft hair suddenly became stiff and erect. He stared coldly at Fatso and said word by word, "There was a man who pointed a gun at my head, and then I disabled him." Fatso's heart could not help but tremble. Why did this guy suddenly become so murderous? Wasn't he a lowly person? Moreover, when Fatso looked at Fong Yan's eyes, the murderous intent in his heart would instantly disintegrate and then turn into timidity and fear. Compared to him, it was as if he was the killer, and he was just a hand. Fong Yan reached out and grabbed the gun on his head, saying, "Shoot." Hit between the eyebrows. Fatso's grip on the gun started to tremble. He wanted to pull the gun out of Fong Yan's hand. He wanted to shout, "This is my gun, and I'll shoot it wherever I want. I'll shoot your thighs, your testicles, your feet, and I'll shoot it on the carpet or the sky. Why do you care?" Fong Yan's hand that was holding the gun suddenly exerted force. He thrust it into the air and then made a 90-degree turn. The koi fish turns over. Whoosh! Fatso felt a strong tug on his arm, and then tragically found that a gun was aimed at him. His chest. Ah, the women in the private room gasped. "Shut up!" Fong Yan roared. These women were too hateful. When Fatso pointed the gun at him just now, they were as quiet as dead people. Now that it was his turn to turn the tables, they shouted and screamed as if they were being molested. Do you think honest people are easy to bully? His eyes were fierce, his means were sharp, and his body was dripping with blood. Now, Fong Yan was like a god of death. His roar was really effective. Those women really shut up and did not dare to say a word. Fong Yan looked at Fatso and shouted, "Kneel down. You don't dare to kill me," bang. As soon as Fatso's voice fell, he was shot in the abdomen. Blood flowed, and Fatso's body softly fell to the ground. "I don't dare, but you do." Fatso looked at the gun in his hand, and tears of humiliation flowed from the corner of his eyes. "I actually don't dare," he said to himself in his heart. Fong Yan walked up to Brother Wolf and asked softly, "Now, do you give me an answer, or do I give you an answer?" "Master Qing," Brother Wolf said with a pale face. "It's Master Qing who wants to hurt you." "Yellow hair, take it back?" "Yes." "Are the reporters going to leave?" "Yes." "Are you going to apologize to me?" "Apologize." Fong Yan was very dissatisfied with Brother Wolf's attitude and said, "Don't you feel that you have wronged me? You are gangsters and hooligans. What are you good at?" The hooligans started to play tricks, forcing a gentle middle school teacher to punch and kick him. "Do you feel guilty?" Brother Wolf also cried. "Don't stop me, let me stab myself." "Master Qing," Fong Yan repeated the name. Then, he smiled and said to Brother Wolf, "Say hello to Master Qing for me." Seeing Fong Yan's bright smile, Brother Wolf suddenly began to worry about Master Qing's safety. Then, he hurriedly drove this absurd thought out of his mind. Who was Master Qing? How could he be threatened by such a person? The reporters came with a bang. They acted as if they were going to get rid of a scourge and expel Fong Yan, the perverted teacher who seduced female students, from the school. They were going to punish him, put him on a tiger stool, and drown him in a pig cage. They were going to ride a wooden horse and parade him through the streets. In the blink of an eye, all of them had left, as if nothing had happened. Although the lake was quiet, they could not bear to throw a stone into the center of the lake. Little Yellow Hair was discharged from the hospital. The first thing he did was to go to the gate of Rosefinch Secondary School to deliver his letter of apology. Baldy stood at the school gate holding the letter of apology and read aloud, "My name is Lu Fatsai. I am an unemployed person who is bored all day and doesn't know what to do. One day, I didn't offend anyone and was walking on the road. I saw a beautiful girl, and then my hormones Meng." He wrote Cutie Meng, not Meng with a cursive character. The students laughed, thinking that Little Yellow Hair was really cute. "My hormones are acting up." I went up to ask him for his phone number. He wrote single, not female. Thus, the students laughed even more. They felt that this guy was gay. Little Yellow Hair stood in the middle of the crowd, letting them slap his face again and again. His eyes were filled with tears, but he clenched his fists. He said in the wind and rain, "What's this pain? Wipe your tears, don't be afraid, at least we still have our dreams." He said in the wind and rain, "What's this pain? Wipe your tears, don't ask, why?" He was a man determined to become the king of hoodlums. He knew that the road ahead was bumpy and he had to endure the ridicule and humiliation of these students. But, one day, he would become the king of Huacheng. Yes, he would definitely be able to do it. Because, his idol was One Piece. Because teacher Fang Yen stopped me from molesting female students, I held a grudge against him. I wanted to ruin his reputation and get him kicked out of the school. However, after going through teacher Fang Yan's teachings, I finally turned over a new leaf and came clean. Teacher Fang Yan, I was wrong. Teacher Fang Yan, you are a good teacher. Teacher Fang Yan, please forgive me. I'm a little lost lamb who is deeply crying. Repentance is written in pinyin. The students laughed again. After Baldi finished reciting, he sent the apology letter to Zhao Dahai of the security department. After Zhao Dahai received the apology letter, he sent it to Li Mingxiang. Li Mingxiang took the apology letter and looked at it from left to right, up and down. After a long time, he sighed and said, "In ancient times, Liu Bei invited Zhuge Liang 3 times. Today, we invited Fang Yan 3 times. We didn't manage to invite him 3 times. Because of Baldi's act of reading a letter in front of the Vermilion Bird Gate, the news of Blondie apologizing to Fang Yan quickly spread throughout the school. Did you hear? Teacher Fang Yan was wronged. Yes. I heard that the hoodlum wanted to molest the students, but was stopped by teacher Fang Yan. That's why they ran to the school gate and made a ruckus. I heard that teacher Fang Yan even hit him. He's good looking and can even hit a hoodlum, so handsome. The happiest were the students of class 9. Their feelings towards Fang Yan were very complicated. After a short period of contact, they all knew that Fang Yan was a humorous and talented teacher. However, this teacher's ability was as outstanding as his ability to cause trouble. They liked him and wanted him to stay and teach. However, he was like a small boat in the sea, a firework in a storm, as if he could be overturned and extinguished at any time. Fortunately, he was able to avert danger every time. Fang Yan could feel the nostalgia and passion in everyone's eyes when they looked at him. This made him even more energetic and in high spirits when he lectured. The bell rang. Fang Yan didn't have the habit of dragging out the class. He threw the half piece of chalk in his hand into the chalk box and said with a smile, "School is over. However, when the students come to class tomorrow, it's best to bring your raincoats." "Teacher, is it going to rain tomorrow? Is it a prop for class?" "It must be." "Mr. Fang, what are we learning tomorrow?" Fang Yan smiled and didn't answer. He waved his hand and said, "Goodbye." Fang Yan sent the textbooks to the office, packed up and prepared to go home. When he walked to the school gate, he found 2 girls waiting for him anxiously. Seeing Fang Yan coming out, the 2 little girls quickly ran towards Fang Yan. One ran fast, and the other ran even faster. The other saw that her friend dared to overtake her, and then her legs ran even faster. No one was willing to admit defeat, and no one was willing to be outdone by the other. They rushed towards him at the speed of a 100-meter sprint, which scared Fang Yan so much that he turned around and walked towards the security room at the school gate. "Fang Yan!" Jiang Qin shouted. "Mr. Fang." Yuan Lin's voice was also very sweet and delicate. Fang Yan had to stop and desperately gestured to the 2 girls, which meant that they would meet at the bus stop and not let people see that they were very familiar with each other. As soon as the storm subsided, the 2 female protagonists came to find him. Wasn't this a confession without being pressed? "Mr. Fang, you're home?" Baldi stood at the entrance of the security room with a large plastic teapot in his hand. He grinned at Fang Yan and greeted him with a smile. "Hey, these 2 students. Aren't they the ones in the photo?" Chapter 48. Fang Yan walked in front while Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, the two young and unadorable Lolas, followed behind Fang Yan on his left and right. When Fang Yan walked, they also walked. When Fang Yan stopped, they also stopped. They were like Fang Ying's two little tails. Of course, these tails were a bit too pretty. Fang Yan helplessly turned around to look at them and said with a bitter smile, "Why did you two come here?" Jiang Qin squinted her eyes and smiled. The corners of her mouth curled up and her nose trembled slightly. She said, "To find you." "Why are you looking for me?" Fang Yan asked. Fang Yan hoped that they didn't know anything. He hoped that these dirty things hadn't intruded into their innocent and pure world. Jiang Qin giggled as she looked at Fang Yan. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Yuan Lin quickly walked to stand beside Fang Yan and said apologetically, "Mr. Fang, I'm sorry. I dragged you into this." Looking at the girl's delicate and white face, seeing the fear and worry in her eyes, Fang Yan's heart softened. He said, "This matter has nothing to do with you. How is it not related to me?" Yuan Lin shook her head. The hair that had just covered her ears also swayed like a black wave. "When they bullied me, if you didn't stand up for me, why would those bad guys take revenge on you? It was because of me. If it wasn't because of me, you wouldn't have been harmed like this. I'm fine." Fang Yan couldn't help but rub the girl's curly hair. He said with a smile, "Look, am I not fine now? What's wrong with me?" But the girl opened her eyes wide and thought for a moment. She said, "Is there really nothing wrong?" "No." Fang Yan shook his head firmly. "There's nothing wrong. There's no difference between school and school as usual." Standing on the other side, Jiang Qin stared into Fang Yan's eyes and said, "Those reporters came to our school, to Jiang Qin, and to me, to ask us about our relationship with you. I told them that you were our tutor. You're our tutor after all. Am I right? I'm not lying." Sure enough, they found Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. However, this was not surprising. Since they could find him among the teachers of so many schools in such a short period of time, how difficult would it be to find these two girls? At that time, a large group of students from number 26 middle school followed Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to the bar. As long as those hoodlums were familiar with one of them, the truth about the others would come to light. "They didn't make things difficult for you, did they?" "No," Yuan Lin said. "They just kept asking about the relationship between Jiang Qin and you. They also said that they took photos of Jiang Qin and you hugging and dancing together." Jiang Qin giggled and said, "I said I didn't believe it and asked them to show me the photos, but they didn't agree. I don't know if the photos are good or not." Fang Yan was quite speechless. At this time, he still had to consider the difficult problem of other people's photography skills. But she didn't take the photos well. It didn't show the cleverness and beauty in her eyes, but made him look handsome and outstanding. Yuan Lin rolled her eyes and was very dissatisfied with Jiang Qin's behavior. "We both insisted that you are our tutor. They couldn't ask anything, so they had to leave. However, I heard that the questions they asked were very unfavorable to you. They seemed to be deliberately targeting you." Fang Yan looked at Yuan Lin in surprise and thought that this girl's mind was quite sharp. Those reporters indeed wanted to discredit him, but they were behind it by the person called Master Qin. "Did they look for you guys again after that?" "No," Jiang Qin said. "However, this matter still spread in the school. Now Yuan Lin and I are both famous in the school, although we were famous in number 26 middle school before." "How famous?" "They all said that Yuan Lin and I are fighting for a teacher's boyfriend." Jiang Qin curled her lips. "Those little brats, what do they know?" "You are also a little brat," Fang Yan said. "I am not." Jiang Qin hated being called little brat. "How am I little?" "I am not little either." Yuan Lin didn't want to be outdone. Fang Yan saw the students coming and going, looking at them curiously. He didn't want to be entangled with these two girls, so he said, "This matter is over. You don't have to worry at all." He had to focus on his studies. "School is over, go home quickly. Don't worry your parents." Fang Yan waved at them and walked quickly to the bus stop. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and followed behind Fang Yan to the bus stop. Seeing the two little tails appear again, Fang Yan had a headache. He looked at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said, "Didn't I tell you to go home? Why are you following me?" "I am going home," Jiang Qin said innocently. "Jiang Qin invited me to her house for dinner." Yuan Lin giggled, showing two cute dimples on her face. "When did I invite you to my house for dinner? It's not too late for you to invite me now." "Why should I invite you?" "Because you are my best friend and bestie. But ever since Fang Yan appeared, I feel that there is a crack in our relationship. Am I not trying to make up for it? If you want to make up for it, stay away from Fang Yan, okay? You don't even cherish me as a friend." Fang Yan was speechless. What are these two little brats arguing about? Fang Yan took Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin home. Jiang Qin rushed to open the door and shouted, "Mom, I am back." Strangely, he didn't hear any response from Sister Li. The door was open, but there was no sound. "Mom." Jiang Qin stood in the yard and looked around, shouting, "I am not dead yet." Sister Li's gloomy voice came from upstairs. Jiang Qin looked up and complained, "Mom, what are you doing upstairs? Yuan Lin is shameless enough to come to our house for a free meal. I asked you to tutor Jiang Qin. Why did you take her to the bar?" Sister Li asked. Fang Yan thought about it and said, "Sister Li, do you think it is bad to go to the bar?" "Of course not. I don't think it is good either," Fang Yan said. "So, I accompanied Jiang Qin. I was worried that she would encounter some unpredictable danger if she went alone." You are quibbling." Sister Li heard Fang Yan shamelessly attribute the responsibility to protecting Jiang Qin, and the fat on her waist was trembling with anger. "Fang Yan, you are a teacher. Is this how you teach your students? Jiang Qin is still a child. How can you take her to the bar? How could you? How could you carry her to the dance?" Sister Li's eyes were red, and she said in a hoarse voice, "Fang Yan, do you know? I have the thought of killing you." Chapter 49. "I know," Fang Yan said softly. He took a tissue from the paper tube on the coffee table and handed it to Sister Li, saying, "Sister Li, there's a big misunderstanding in this matter. I don't know if my explanation will convince you, but no matter what you say or do, I will completely understand." "All right. Then explain it to me. Give me an explanation." Sister Li wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with a tissue and said, "On the night I tutored Jiang Qin for the first time, I did accompany Jiang Qin to a bar. That night, a classmate of Jiang Qin's was celebrating her birthday. Jiang Qin wanted to go and celebrate with her friend. At that time, I had two choices. I could either reject her or let her go by herself. Either you agree to go with her or you go with her." "You can tell me," Sister Li said. "Tell me." "I won't allow her to go out." Fang Yan smiled and said, "Sister Li, do you know Jiang Qin's character? If you had forbidden her to go out that night, would she not have gone?" Sister Li thought about it seriously and said unwillingly, "But you can't you hold her and dance? She was only a student, a child. Why would she dance? Why not go anywhere to celebrate his birthday? Why did you have to go to a bar?" Young people like to imagine the future. Just like how kids like to wear adult shoes, kids like Jiang Qin also wanted to experience the lifestyle of adults in advance. They like to hold their birthday parties in KTV or bars, so it's not strange, explained Fang Yan. "What about dancing? What's the matter with dancing?" Sister Li asked anxiously. This was what she was most concerned about. Her daughter had yet to reach adulthood and was her precious darling. Her tutor, whom she had painstakingly invited, turned out to be a hidden evil wolf. This gave her the urge to destroy the universe. Did they show you the photos? Fang Yan asked. Yes, I have. Sister Li answered innocently. In the photo, Jiang Qin and I are hugging each other? Yes. Sister Li became excited again. She could not bear the mere mention of the subject. I saw the photo. The photos won't lie to me, right? It was the photo that lied to you, Fang Yan said. At that time, Jiang Qin was teaching me how to dance. We weren't dancing in each other's arms. Sister Li, you don't have to believe me, but please believe your daughter. Fang Yan's expression was calm. He looked straight into his sister Li's eyes and said, she is very smart and beautiful. You should be proud to have such a daughter. Sister Li remained silent. Fang Yan also kept his mouth shut. He was waiting for Sister Li's final verdict. Fang Yan. Sister Li looked at Fang Yan and said, how many tutoring lessons have you given to Jiang Qin? I will pay you 100 yuan for each lesson. I will refund you the rent and the penalty. I can't rent this house to you anymore. Fang Yan smiled and said, Sister Li, I understand. I don't want the tutoring fees, I don't want the rent, and I can't ask for the penalty. I did something wrong this time. I'm sorry that I caused you so much trouble. Fang Yan stood up and turned to walk out of the door. When he reached the door, Fang Yan turned to look at Sister Li and said, but Sister Li's cooking is really delicious. Let's move tomorrow, Sister Li said. Okay, Fang Yan agreed. Let's have dinner together tonight. Okay, Fang Yan agreed again. Fang Yan went downstairs and Sister Li followed him. As soon as they went out, they saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin hurriedly running down the stairs. Obviously, they just wanted to sneak up to find out the situation, but they didn't expect to hear footsteps halfway down, so they had to run first. Seeing Fang Yan go downstairs, Jiang Qin winked at Fang Yan, meaning to say, how's the talk with my mom? Fang Yan smiled, indicating that everything was fine. Jiang Qin's tight face bloomed into a charming smile, and she made an okay gesture to Yuan Lin. As if happiness was contagious, Yuan Lin, the little girl, also smiled, revealing her two signature dimples. While Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin did their homework, Fang Yan returned to his rented house. Looking at his first place in Huacheng, Fang Yan's heart was filled with emotions. In less than a month, so many things had happened to him. This urban village called Che Pai, this alley, this small courtyard, and this house of less than 30 square meters. He didn't have time to really get to know them, but he already had to say goodbye. He came empty-handed, and when he left, he didn't have anything to worry about. Except for 2 sets of clothes and a few books, he found that he had nothing. Without luggage, he didn't need to pack. He folded the clothes and put them into the bag he carried when he came, and put the books on top of the clothes. All his work was done. Since he had nothing to do, he just lay on the bed and thought about things. He thought about his father's reaction, his father's angry roar, his mother's love and strictness, Yi Rou, Rosefinch Secondary, Lu Chaoga, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin. He also thought about Master Qin. Master Qin. He repeated the name. It's my honor to meet you. Fang Yan heard Jiang Dai's voice from the courtyard. He had finished selling pork and came back from work. Then, Jiang Qin ran over and knocked on the door to ask Fang Yan to eat. Fang Yan opened the door, looked at Jiang Qin standing at the door, and said, "Is the food ready?" "Yes," Jiang Qin said. "Then let's go," Fang Yan said. "Let's go," Jiang Qin agreed. He said he would go, but he didn't. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yan worriedly and said, "What did my mother say to you?" "She asked if you've made progress in your studies recently." "Pfft, I don't believe it." Jiang Qin sneered. "That's definitely not what she asked." Fang Yan smiled and said, "That's what she's most concerned about. So, you have to study hard." Jiang Qin's delicate eyebrows immediately furrowed, and she said, "Why does it sound like we're going to part forever?" "How can you say that, girl?" Fang Yan scolded her with a straight face. "That's what I taught you." Jiang Qin stuck out her tongue and said with a smile, "It's just a metaphor. It's not like we're going to part forever. Come and eat. I'm hungry." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were already at the table. Jiang Dai was opening the bottle of wine. Seeing Fang Yan come in, he said, "Mr. Fang, let's drink 2 cups tonight." "Okay. I'll drink 2 cups with Big Brother Jiang." Fang Yan agreed with a smile. Jiang Qin pouted. She was very dissatisfied with the way Fang Yan called his father. Fang Yan called her father Big Brother, so didn't that make her his niece? Yuan Lin's mood instantly turned bad. Jiang Qin became Fang Yan's niece. She and Jiang Qin were of the same generation, so didn't she also become his niece? Sisterly served the last dish, stir-fried beans with wax meat, and said, "Let's eat. Let's eat." While talking about eating, she put food into Yuan Lin and Jiang Qin's bowls. Then she put food into Fang Yan's bowl, and the plate in front of Fang Yan was once again piled into a hill. "Come on, Mr. Fang, let's have a toast," Jiang Dai said with a smile and took the initiative to pick up the cup. "Let's have a toast." Fang Yan picked up the cup. Their cups clinked together, and then they each drank the white wine in the cup. Jiang Dai smacked his lips and said, "Mr. Fang drank to his heart's content today. Drink, drink, drink. You only know how to drink." Sisterly was very dissatisfied with her husband, Jiang Dai. "Let Mr. Fang eat a hot dish first." Jiang Dai was not angry. He smiled honestly and said, "Mr. Fang, eat some food." Fang Yan ate a few mouthfuls of food, took the initiative to pick up the cup, and said, "Big Brother, let's have another toast." "Let's have a toast," Jiang Dai said heroically. Jiang Qin felt that the atmosphere of the meal today was not quite right, but she could not find what was wrong. Her father was still leaving, her mother was still attentive and considerate, and Fang Yan, Jiang Qin's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She finally knew what was wrong. Fang Yan's words became quieter. In the past, he would tell jokes while eating, and everyone would laugh uncontrollably. During the meal, it felt like a talk show. But today, he was unusually quiet. He just kept drinking and didn't talk much. What's wrong? Jiang Qin thought. Jiang Dai was drunk. This was the first time he got drunk in his own home. Oh, the second time. The first time was when his daughter, Jiang Qin, got into number 26 middle school. Although it was not the best school in Huacheng, but his daughter was really amazing. Jiang Qin had something on her mind, so she put down her chopsticks early. Yuan Lin was the second to put down her chopsticks, because in front of Fang Yan, she could not show that she could eat more than Jiang Qin. Sisterly also put down her chopsticks and looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully. Fang Yan ate bitterly for a while, then put down his chopsticks and said, "I'm full." Sisterly wanted to say something but stopped. She looked at her daughter and sighed in her heart, then said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, do you want some fruit?" "No thanks." Fang Yan also smiled and refused. "I'm really full." He stood up and walked out of the dining room, then returned to his room. He put the key on the table, picked up the small travel bag on the bed, and walked to the door of the small courtyard. The sky was dark, and the night was deep. Outside the door, there were tens of thousands of lights and endless traffic. There was the hustle and bustle of hawkers, the sound of vendors haggling, and the sound of couples quarreling. The whole world was lively and wonderful. However, standing in the middle of the crowd, Fang Yan found himself alone. Fang Yan. Jiang Qin saw Fang Yan leave with his bag and quickly chased after him. Kiss. Sisterly reacted quickly and grabbed Jiang Qin's arm. Jiang Qin pulled with all his might, but Sisterly was too strong. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. Fang Yan. Jiang Qin's eyes turned red, and soon tears flowed out. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have brought you to the bar. It's all my fault, I shouldn't have let you fight. It's all my fault, I shouldn't have hugged you and danced, it's all my fault. The girl cried out, her tears cutting her face. Chapter 50. He looks like a dog. If someone stood on a high place and happened to see his back, would he exclaim like this? Fang Yan thought, definitely. He had been living under the protection and care of the Fang family. His father was very demanding of him but extremely tolerant. His mother often scolded him but loved him very much. His senior apprentice brother accommodated him and his junior apprentice brother admired him very much. Except for being beaten by the violent woman Yi Ro every year, his life was actually quite stable and peaceful. His father's scolding was not real, and his senior apprentice brother's beating was not real. His father scolded him fiercely and his senior apprentice brother punched him cruelly, but they never really hurt him. Those people outside would. When they praise you, they don't really praise you, but when they scold you, they really scold you. They would hurt him when they hit him, and they would kill him when they stabbed him. The outside world was very wonderful, and the outside world was also very abnormal. Fang Yan felt that he was hurt. Fang Yan. Fang Yan. A hurried and sweet voice came from behind. Fang Yan turned around and looked at Yuan Lin, who was running with a school bag on her back, and said, "Why did you run out?" Without waiting for Yuan Lin to answer, he said, "You should call me Mr. Fang." Fang Yan, Fang Yan. Fang Yan is not for you to call me that. Who? Yuan Lin put her hands on her knees, leaned forward and panted, and said, I don't want to call you Mr. Fang. Jiang Qin didn't call you that. Why should I call you that? Then she said, of course I ran out. I want to go home, or where am I going to sleep? I thought you were going to sleep at Jiang Qin's house. Fang Yan said. No. My mother doesn't allow me to spend the night outside. Yuan Lin waved her hand and said. Fang Yan, where are you going? Me? Everywhere is my home. Fang Yan said with a smile. If you really don't have a place to sleep, you can sleep under the bridge for the night. No, Yuan Lin said anxiously. How can people live there? It's dirty, messy, and dangerous. She bit her lip and thought hard. Suddenly, she said with surprise, why don't you sleep in my house? Fang Yan stared at Yuan Lin with wide eyes. This little girl dared to bring a man home? I told Mom that I found a very good home tutor. Yuan Lin said with a smile. It just so happens that you can help me with my Chinese. Fang Yan laughed. This little girl was really too naive. Bringing a man home in the middle of the night and saying that he was her tutor. Her parents would probably call the police, right? Don't worry. I have a place to stay. Fang Yan comforted her. The school had already assigned me a house, but I thought that since I already rented a house here, I might as well stay here for now. Now it seems that it's not suitable for me to live here anymore. Actually, Yuan Lin said with a bitter face, actually, Jiang Qin is very reluctant to let you go. It's the first time I've seen her cry so much. It's not your fault. Those bad guys were doing bad things, so someone had to stand up for them and uphold justice. If someone wants to blame, it should be me. Fang Yan smiled and said, it's your fault for being too good-looking and attracting the attention of the hooligans? Yuan Lin was happy and shy, and said, I'm not as good-looking as Jiang Qin. This girl really indirectly admitted that she was good-looking. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, you go back. It's so late. If you don't go home, your parents will be worried. I want to walk with you. Yuan Lin said. I know you're in a bad mood. Why am I in a bad mood? Isn't it just changing places to live? Fang Yan said with a smile. The house and the school is better. There's no rent. Good people don't get good rewards. No one will be happy. Yuan Lin said. Fang Yan's spirit was lifted, and he looked at the beautiful and lovely girl in front of him in surprise. It was the first time he looked at her so carefully and seriously. Sometimes he felt that she was young and immature, and sometimes she showed a maturity that didn't match her age. She could see through his heart, which Fang Yan didn't expect at all. Isn't this a normal thing? Why do you look so surprised? Do you have a cigarette? Fang Yan asked. No. Yuan Lin shook her head. I don't smoke. Do you have money? Fang Yan asked again. I'll go buy cigarettes for you. Yuan Lin said, turned and ran to the convenience store on the side of the road. Soon, Yuan Lin came back with cigarettes and a lighter. Fang Yan sat on the bench at the bus stop, tore open the cigarette pack, and put the cigarette in his mouth, but he didn't light it. Yuan Lin sat next to Fang Yan, looked at him curiously, and asked, Don't you need to light it? No need. I'm afraid I'll choke. Fang Yan said. Then why did you buy cigarettes? I just want to see if smoking and drinking can relieve the sadness in my heart. Is it solved? Yuan Lin asked with her eyes wide open. Fang Yan thought about it seriously and said, I feel a lot better. No wonder everyone likes to find someone to chat with when they're in a bad mood. I'll try it too. Yuan Lin took out a cigarette and put it in her mouth. Fang Yan snatched the cigarette away and reprimanded, Students are not allowed to smoke. The buses came and went one after another, coming and going again. There were fewer and fewer people on the platform, and finally there were only two lonely figures. Fang Yan didn't leave, and Yuan Lin didn't leave either. Fang Yan didn't speak, and Yuan Lin didn't speak either. The two of them just sat side by side, watching the traffic in front of them. The lights were on, and the world gradually quieted down. Puff, Fang Yan spat out the cigarette in his mouth on the ground, crushed it with his foot, and said, Go back. Okay. Yuan Lin said. She played with the mobile phone in her hand, and then frowned. Lend me your mobile phone, Yuan Lin said. Don't you have a mobile phone? Fang Yan said. My mobile phone is out of money. I can't call it. Fang Yan handed over the mobile phone and thought that the students nowadays were so pitiful. Their mobile phones often stopped working because of arrears. Yuan Lin took the mobile phone and searched for a while. Sure enough, she found her pitiful number in the blacklist. Damn Jiang Qin. Yuan Lin cursed in her heart. Her fingers quickly moved, restored her number from the blacklist, and then threw Jiang Qin's number into the call rejection list. After doing all this, she returned the mobile phone to Fang Yan with satisfaction and said, Forget it. It's so late, and it's better not to disturb others by phone. Yuan Lin got up from the bench and said, Fang Yan, I'm going back. Call Mr. Fang. Fang Yan said angrily. Goodbye, Fang Yan. Yuan Lin said with a smile. She reached out to a taxi, opened the door and got in. These children. Fang Yan shook his head. When he woke up, it was a new day. Before Fang Yan opened his eyes, a faint fragrance came to his nose. His mouth, nose, heart, and lungs were full of the fragrance of the osmanthus. There was an osmanthus tree at the entrance of the courtyard, and the osmanthus was in full bloom. This feels so good. Fang Yan thought in his heart. When he was at home, he could also enjoy this kind of life. When he woke up in the morning, the fragrance of flowers was everywhere, birds were singing, some people were singing, and more brothers were practicing Tai Chi. Life was comfortable and easy, as if he was living in a paradise. He also found the feeling of home here. But why couldn't he be happy at all? Fang Yan's heart was inexplicably painful. He thought of the picture of a girl being grabbed by her mother and unable to break free, crying over and over again, It's all my fault, it's all my fault, Fang Yan said softly. The sky was misty, and the clouds were very low. It seemed that a storm was coming. The weather forecast said that there would be heavy rain today. It seemed that there were times when the forecast was accurate. He got up and practiced a few rounds of Tai Chi. Then he helped Lu Chaoga weeding and watering the flowers and plants, and cut off some cumbersome branches and leaves. After that, he took a bath and changed his clothes. After that, Fang Yan opened the door of the courtyard and went out. Li Ziqiang was about to go to school with a newspaper under his arm. When he saw Fang Yan coming out of Lu Chaoga's courtyard, he couldn't help but be stunned. "Good morning, Director Li," Fang Yan greeted with a smile. "Well," Li Ziqiang responded. "Fang Yan, why are you here?" "Principal Lu said that her house was empty, so she lent it to me," Fang Yan said. "There are rules in the school," Fang Yan interrupted Li Ziqiang's words and said, "Director Li, shouldn't you talk to Principal Lu about this kind of thing? You two are at the same level, right?" Li Ziqiang thought it was true. What was there to talk about with a teacher? If Lu Chaoga didn't give him the house, how could he be qualified to live here? Li Ziqiang was about to say a few harsh words to tell him to behave himself and not to think that living here made him an arrogant leader of the school. Before he could do that, he realized that Fang Yan had already turned around and walked away. "Pretty boy." Li Ziqiang spat at his back. After he finished cursing, he felt a little sad. He also had a beautiful heart, but he didn't have a beautiful face. Fang Yan didn't walk out of the teacher's courtyard. Instead, he walked east along Bird River. He walked past the newly built teacher's building and the courtyard of the villa before stopping in front of a small building at the entrance of Bird River. This small building was mostly made of wood. It was slightly older than Lu Chaoga's building. However, it was 3 stories high, and the area of the courtyard was several times larger than Lu Chaoga's courtyard. Fang Yan knocked on the door, and the wooden door opened. A silver-haired old man in a white tang suit walked out. He had tiger-like eyes and thick eyebrows, and he was full of energy. It looked like it had an intimidating aura. Fang Yan greeted him with a smile and said, "Grandfather, you haven't had breakfast yet, right?" The old man glanced at Fang Yan and said, "Let's go. Justice is more important than food." Chapter 51. Clear Sky Building. Fang Yan accompanied his grandfather, Lu Gong, out of the taxi. Looking at the name of the building written in gold at the entrance of the square, he said with a smile, "This is a record of merit." Do gangsters also like to be elegant? Lu Gong completely ignored it and walked straight to the entrance of the building. The building used an electronic gate, and one had to swipe a card to enter. Fang Yan reached out and knocked on the glass door, summoning the security guard inside to speak. The middle-aged security guard came over and asked, "What's the matter?" "We're looking for someone," Fang Yan said. "Who are you looking for?" the security guard asked. "Du Qing," Lu Gong said loudly. Every word he said was powerful and resonant, full of energy. Du Qing. The security guard felt that the name was familiar. But he couldn't remember who it was. Could it be a friend he met at the table? "Your boss," Fang Yan added. The security guard was shocked. He stared at the old and young man cautiously and asked, "Why are you looking for our big boss? Do you have an appointment?" "I have an appointment," Fang Yan said. "Call Secretary Li and ask her to come down and pick them up." The security guard didn't dare to delay and quickly went to make the call. Soon, he ran over again and said, "Secretary Li invites you in." The electronic gate opened automatically. Lu Gong stepped in, and Fang Yan followed closely behind. As soon as they reached the elevator door, the elevator opened. A beautiful and sexy woman walked in and said with a smile, "Is it Mr. Lu? The chairman is already waiting for you in the office." She looked at Fang Yan, who was standing next to Lu Gong, and said, "This is." There was only Lu Gong's name on the memo. Fang Yan belonged to the unknown unregistered. Fang Yan. Fang Yan took the initiative to reach out to the woman, holding her smooth and delicate palm and said, "Fang as in square, Yan as in Chinese." What a descendant of Yan Huang. Leah laughed. Mr. Lu, a descendant of Yan Huang. Please follow me. Lu Gong glared at Fang Yan and stepped into the elevator. Fang Yan and Leah looked at each other and smiled, then followed closely behind. Leah used the nameplate on her chest to scan the elevator's electronic system, then pressed a blank button that did not show any floors. Fang Yan thought to himself, this Du Qing is indeed worthy of starting out as an underworld. His sense of security is very strong. Even though the Clear Sky building was his independent kingdom, he was still heavily guarded. Fortunately, Grandpa's student had a way. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy for him to see him. The security on the top floor was even stricter, and the staircase and the lounge of the elevator was. The security on the top floor was even stricter. At the top of the stairs and in the lounge facing the elevator, there were black-clothed men eyeing outsiders. A hooligan is a hooligan. Even if he has hundreds of millions of dollars, he still can't change the violent and barbaric nature of a hooligan. Fang Yan mocked in his heart. Of course, this did not rule out the possibility of Du Qing wanting to show off his strength in front of his guests. After all, some coal bosses like to bring a few burly men to increase their aura when they went out. When Shanghai Beach was on the air, Su Wenxiang, who was dressed in black and wearing a black hat, walked out of the alley with a group of lackeys in suits. How many hot-blooded men were envious of that scene? Leah walked to the door of an electronic door, pressed the video call button, and said softly, "Boss, Mr. Lu is here." The electronic door opened, and Leah stood at the side and made an inviting gesture. Lu Gong was fearless as he strode in. Fang Yan thanked Leah and followed her into the room. This was a room that was so spacious that it was a little unreasonable. The entire room was about 1,000 square meters in size. There were no bookshelves filled with books, no computers, phones, and other electronic office equipment. The walls were all painted silver. Other than a wooden table and chairs facing the door, there was an indoor golf course. The indoor lawn was planted with lush green grass, and the ceiling was transparent. When he raised his head, he could see the dark clouds rolling in the sky. A middle-aged man wearing a polo shirt stood in the middle of the lawn, holding a club with both hands and preparing to hit the ball. Bang! With a graceful upward stroke, the small white ball flew out with a resounding sound. Beautiful. The man smiled happily. Obviously, he was also a golf enthusiast. The man was very pleased with the landing point of the small ball, and only then did he reluctantly walk out of the lawn with the club in his hand. Du Qing. Fang Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. Du Qing seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze immediately shifted to Fang Yan. Then, he smiled and nodded at Fang Yan, indicating that he had greeted him. Fang Yan had searched for Du Qing's information on the internet, and knew that he was now a famous enterprise in Huacheng. He had single-handedly established the Green Cloud Group, which was involved in civil construction, port transportation, and seafood wholesale and export businesses. He had been chosen as Huacheng's Outstanding Entrepreneur of the Year for many years. He did charity work. Whether it was the earthquake in Wen County or the snowstorm in the south, he had donated tens of millions. He was a well-known philanthropist in the country. However, his background as a mafia was rarely mentioned. Perhaps, even if someone knew the truth and posted it on the internet, it would be quickly deleted. Fang Yan had also seen some photos of Du Qing attending events on the internet. He looked gentle and refined, and had the demeanor of a successful entrepreneur. In reality, Du Qing was even more charming. He looked younger than in the photos, and his mental state was easier to show. He had a square face, swept-back hair, and wore white casual pants and white casual shoes. A black polo shirt pulled down his age, and he looked much younger than his actual age. This was a handsome man. Or rather, this was a refined man. If one did not know the inside story, they would not be able to connect this person with Huacheng's mafia tycoon, Master Qing. Yes, this man controlled the underworld forces of Huacheng. Some people said that in modern society, good families all followed the style of young ladies, and young ladies all walked the path of purity, so did gangsters. Old Mr. Lu, nice to meet you. Du Qing took the initiative to extend his hand to Lu Gong. His smile was very friendly. Lu Gong placed his right hand behind his back and said expressionlessly, "There's no need for a handshake. Your hands are covered in blood from fighting and killing, and my handwriting is covered in ink from flipping through books. We are not the same kind of people." Du Qing's gaze turned cold, but it returned to normal in an instant. He laughed and said, "Old Mr. Lu is really a humorous person." "It's just the truth." "It's not really humorous," Lu Gong said with a straight face. Du Qing was still smiling, but his smile had obviously become gloomy. He said, "Then, what is old Mr. Lu's purpose in meeting me?" "To seek justice for my grandson." Lu Gong pointed at Fang Yan and said. Du Qing looked at Fang Yan and said, "Little brother, this is the first time we've met, right? Why do you have a murderous look in your eyes when you see me? You want to kill me, and I want to kill you. What's wrong with that?" Fang Yan laughed. "What's your name?" "Fang Yan." Fang as in square, the flame of the descendants of Yan and Huang. Some people say it's the flame of two fires. Fang Yan? Du Qing repeated the name. He finally had a little impression of the man in front of him. At an invitational golf tournament, he was asked to deal with a man. It was said that the man was just a middle school teacher. He didn't take the matter seriously and casually asked his subordinates to do it. This teacher actually had some background. Was he the grandson of old man Lu Gong? No, Lu Gong's surname was Lu, and Fang Yan's surname was Fang, so it's you? Du Qing laughed. Before you came in, I really didn't think that we would have a chance to meet. I'm the opposite of you. Fang Yan laughed. I know, we will definitely meet. Because you have a good grandfather? Du Qing sneered. Asking an old man to come out and plead for you shouldn't be a hot-blooded man, right? There are two fires in your name, but you can't see any fire in your actions. This is the most convenient way. Fang Yan said. Of course, I have many other ways. However, I think this method should be the most gentle of all the methods. Fang Yan not only knew how to recite poems and write, but he was also proficient in tracking, kidnapping, burlap, and beating people with clubs. As the saying goes, it's never a burden to have more skills. Du Qing looked at Lu Gong and said, Old Mr. Lu, how do we seek justice for this? First, tell us the real culprit behind the scenes, and we will talk to him. What else? Du Qing asked. Kowtow to my grandson and apologize. Lu Gong said. Du Qing's eyelids twitched. Those who were familiar with him knew that this was a sign that he was extremely angry. What if I don't agree? Why not? I can't agree. I don't want to agree either. You wanted to destroy my grandson, so asking you to kowtow and apologize is already extremely lenient. Do you really think that a hooligan's face is more important than my grandson's life? Lu Gong. Du Qing shouted angrily. I see that you're giving face to Chief Luo. Don't be so ungrateful. Do you believe that I won't get someone to throw you off this Clearsky building? Du Qing looked out the door and shouted, Men. Whoosh, the electronic door opened and a large number of men in black surged in. They surrounded Lu Gong and Fang Yan in the middle, looking like they could attack at any time. Fang Yan took a step forward and used his body to block his grandfather, Lu Gong, behind him. Move. Lu Gong pushed Fang Yan away. I don't believe you. Lu Gong glared at Du Qing and shouted sternly. His eyes were wide open and his silver hair was flying. I'm a scholar. I know the 4 books and 5 classics, and I'm familiar with the records of the Grand Historian and the Book of Han. I write to nourish my qi, and I read poetry to cultivate my mind. I only have a few clothes and I'm penniless. But I have thousands of students, and that's my greatest asset in this life. I respect heaven and earth, respect morality, and fear the people. You're just a hooligan, why would I be threatened by you? Lu Gong strode in front of Du Qing and shouted, I know that your family is rich and has many disciples. I'd like to see what you can do to me today. Civil officials were not greedy, and military generals did not hesitate to die. They would definitely win the hearts of all the countries in the world. Even a mere scholar, as long as he had the courage to protect himself, he could even charge into a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. Chapter 52. Literature could shock the heavens and the earth. In ancient myths, when a good piece of literature appeared in the world, there would definitely be a phenomenon from the heavens. Auspicious clouds would fill the sky, drums would sound in unison, fairies would scatter flowers, saints would appear, and 72 saints would bow in worship. Generals had killing intent, while scholars had strength of character. When a scholar was not afraid of power or death, then he would be an invincible existence. Killing him and humiliating him was just to help him leave his name in history. Sima Qian was like this, and so could Lu Gong. Fang Yan's eyes widened, and he was deeply shocked. His grandfather was a teacher who rarely blushed with others, but when faced with an ambitious and ruthless underworld character like Du Qing, he was actually able to display such an aggressive and unyielding attitude. This was too surprising, pleasantly surprising. He held his head high and chest out, and his eyes were firm and stubborn. His thin face was slightly raised, and his silver hair stood on its own even though there was no wind. He was the shortest old man present, but at this moment, the aura he emitted enveloped the entire place. Respect the heavens and the earth. Respect for morality. Fear the hearts of the people. A mere hooligan, what was there to be afraid of? Fang Yan felt like his eyes were brimming with tears. This was how a man should be. His dantian was scorching hot, as if someone was holding a match and gently stroking it. The heart of Tai Chi, which had been stagnant for a long time, was starting to react. Was that sturdy outer shell finally going to melt? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He tried his best to pursue it, but he couldn't get any results. It was like an earthworm loosening the soil, like a seed trying to break through the membrane on the top of his head, just a little bit more. As long as he exerted a little more force, he would be able to break through the soil. What was missing? What exactly was missing? Seeing Lu Gong's overbearing manner, Du Qing was extremely angry. How many years had it been? No one dared to clamor in front of him. Of course, there had been someone who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Later, on his way back, he had collided with a truck loaded with sand and stones. He had died on the spot, and the truck driver had abandoned the car and fled. How could there be so many coincidences in this world? Some coincidences were heaven's will, while others were human's will. Just as Lu Gong had said, his family was filthy rich, had many underlings, made friends with influential officials, and squeezed into the upper class with the identity of a greenhorn. As long as he said a word, or even just a hint with his eyes, there would be countless people willing to work for him, erasing the old and the young from this world. Yes, his underlings were also getting impatient from waiting. The people standing in this office were the brothers who had fought with him in the past. When these arrogant soldiers and valiant bandits heard Lu Gong's words, their eyes turned red and they clenched their fists tightly. Du Qing could also hear Barbarian Bull's rough breathing, which was a sign that he was about to attack. You may leave, Du Qing said. A tragedy was about to break out. Big brother. Barbarian Bull shouted in a coarse voice. Step down. Du Qing waved his hand and said with a smile. When Barbarian Bull saw Du Qing's smiling face, he immediately lost his anger, turned around and left dejectedly. He was not afraid of Du Qing's screams, but he was afraid of Du Qing's laughter. This was a phrase that his brothers always said. If Du Qing yelled at the people around him, then it proved that you were still his brother. If he smiled at you, it was best not to make him angry at this time. When Barbarian Bull left, the others also followed. Very quickly, those men in black left, not a single one was left. Elder Lu, why do you have to do this? Du Qing looked at Lu Gong and said with a smile. Although I, Du Qing, was born from a grassroots background, and my body is now stained with the stench of money, I still admire Elder Lu's great name for a long time. Huaqing used to be a weak city in education, but Elder Lu single-handedly changed the situation. He mobilized donations and set up schools. He personally attended to everything, and invited talents everywhere. The most admirable thing is that ninth brother Lu made the school principal. This is really something that ordinary people can't do. No matter how bad my heart is, no matter how bad my character is, I can't hurt such an affectionate and righteous old man who wholeheartedly serves the public. Am I right? From Du Qing's words, it could be seen that he did have some understanding of Lu Gong. Moreover, in his heart, he was very clear that he really couldn't do anything to Lu Gong. This little old man was a freak in the education field of Huaqing. He didn't have any authority, but most of the time, his words carried more weight than the mayor or provincial governor. He said that he was a penniless scholar, and Du Qing couldn't confirm this. However, he said that he had tens of thousands of students, and this was the capital that he was most proud of. Du Qing knew this very well. More than tens of thousands? He served as the principal of 9 middle schools, and when he found a more suitable candidate, he immediately gave up his position. When he gave up his position for the 9th time, even the central government was alarmed. Every time the country's president and prime minister visited Huaqing, they would request to meet this bookworm whose name had shaken Huaxia. As the principal of 9 schools, how many students did he have? Among these people, how many of them were high-ranking officials or even important ministries and commissions? The official with the surname Zhang, who regarded him as his teacher and father, was now the head of a municipality, and it was only a matter of time before he rose to the center of the country's power. No matter how influential Du Qing was, would he dare to touch an old man like this? Thinking of this, Du Qing secretly cursed the eldest young master Jiang, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, Jiang Zhongzhu. Didn't you say that the person you wanted to mess with was just an ordinary middle school teacher? Even old man Lu Gong had come forward. Was this still an ordinary middle school teacher? What a scam! Du Qing admitted defeat, and his words all hit Lu Gong's weak spot. Only then did the old man's expression improve a little. He looked at Du Qing seriously and said, I'm not here to take advantage of my seniority, I'm here to seek justice for my grandson. I just want to know, when and where did my grandson offend Mr. Du to the point of incurring such vengeance from you? Killing someone is just a small matter, but destroying someone's reputation is absolutely unforgivable. It's a misunderstanding. Du Qing said with a chuckle. It's a misunderstanding. Old Mr. Lu, you also know that my energy is mainly focused on the Green Cloud group now. Those fighting and killing things are already in the past. However, after all, I've been in Jianghu, my brothers in Jianghu should still give me some face. Shall I find someone to ask? Ask. Lu Gong said. Du Qing knew that he had to give this grandfather and grandson an explanation. He opened the communication system on his wrist and said, Secretary Li, ask Sirius to come see me. Also, bring someone in to make a pot of good tea. Yes. Lia's sweet voice came from the phone. Old Mr. Lu, and this little brother Fang Yan. Come, wait for a moment, they'll be here soon. Let's drink tea and chat. The biggest regret in my life is that I didn't study enough, so I really respect cultured people. Since Du Qing had said it like this, Lu Gong and Fang Yan had no choice but to give him face. Du Qing pressed the button on his watch, and the silver-white wall automatically shrank to both sides. A door appeared at the edge of the golf course, and behind the door was an antique room with a coffee table and chairs. Based on Fang Yan's understanding, these tea tables, and chairs were all made of precious materials such as red sandalwood or Hainan rosewood. Furthermore, some of them were passed down from dynasties that had existed for hundreds or even thousands of years. Just the decoration of this small tea room would probably cost hundreds of millions of yuan. Lu Gong was very interested in these exquisitely carved wooden furniture. He seriously admired it and said, "It's rare to see large pieces of furniture made of rosewood nowadays, and such exquisite workmanship is even rarer. Mr. Du must collect it well, this is a national treasure." Old Mr. Lu is right, Du Qing will definitely obey. Du Qing smiled gently and agreed. While the three of them were talking, the office door opened. The secretary, Leah, walked in with two girls in Cheongsam. One was holding a teapot, the other was carrying boiling water, and they walked towards the tea room. The girl in the Cheongsam had obviously been trained in the tea ceremony. After they came in, they immediately got busy on the tea table. Washing tea, cleaning cups, brewing, their movements were skillful and graceful. Just smelling the tea and watching the tea show was a beautiful enjoyment. Leah stood respectfully at the side, occasionally looking at Fang Yan, who was sitting with Lu Gong. When the tea was ready, the girl in the Cheongsam used the tea tweezers to distribute the teacups to everyone. Du Qing made a gesture of invitation and said, "Elder Lu, please." Lu Gong picked up the teacup and sniffed it, then praised, "Good tea." Du Qing's interest was piqued, and he said, "Elder Lu, may I ask what's good about it?" Lu Gong glanced at Fang Yan beside him and said, "My grandson is very picky. Let's listen to him." Du Qing smiled and said, "Then I'll ask little brother Fang Yan to comment." Hearing that Du Qing wanted Fang Yan to taste the tea, Leah and the two girls in Cheongsam immediately looked at Fang Yan's face. Fang Yan smelled the fragrance and looked at the color. He took a small sip and held it in his mouth to savor the taste. After swallowing it, he said, "I won't comment on the tea for now. Let's talk about the water first. There's no smell of bleach powder, so it's not tap water. There's no artificial addition of industrial raw materials, so it's not mineral water. It's clear and sweet, and it comes from nature. I think this water must have come from a famous mountain or a spring in a beautiful place. The most brilliant thing is, I don't know how this water was transported here. It's not musty, it's not hard to taste, and it still maintains a clear and fresh taste. It's like it's just been fished out of the spring." Du Qing praised and said with a smile, "This water is the water of the Tiger Mountain. My people found a spring there. The water is sweet and suitable for brewing tea. Using a wooden bucket to fill the water, the bucket is not covered, and fresh tea leaves are used to cover the dust. Then, using a wooden boat to transport the water. The wooden boat is paddled by people, so the water will not be stained with any smell of oil. Brother Fang is an expert, you're absolutely right." After a pause, he said, "Mr. Fang, would you like to comment on this tea?" "There's no praise for the tea," Fang Yan said indifferently. "The tea doesn't match this water. This is definitely not Mr. Du's collection of good tea, right?" Du Qing was stunned for a moment, then he laughed and turned to Leah and said, "Serve the tea, serve the tea." Chapter 53. Leah took the new tea and Fang Yan took it and brewed it again. The tea and water complemented each other and the fragrance filled the air. With good tea and good water, the effect of brewing was indeed very different from before. After a cup of fragrant tea entered their stomachs, the atmosphere became more harmonious. It was as if they had accepted the other party's cigarette and drank a cup of wine at a social occasion, and their relationship had instantly warmed up. "What a good tea!" Du Qing said to the two women in Cheongsam, "Xiao Bai, Xiao Ting, you two have to learn more from Mr. Fang Yan. Mr. Fang is an expert in the tea ceremony." The two women in Cheongsam were still a little disapproving when Du Qing invited Fang Yan to comment. What kind of insight could a guy who hadn't even grown his hair have? Even after hearing Fang Yan's comments, they were still a little unconvinced. Who wouldn't be able to taste such good tea and water in their mouths? It wasn't until Fang Yan's performance of Kung Fu tea that they personally drank the tea made by Fang Yan that they were completely convinced by Fang Yan. They had also brewed this box of old Shu de Hong Pao, but the taste was not as mellow and fragrant. Hearing that the boss wanted them to learn from Fang Yan, the two of them stared at Fang Yan with shining eyes and said, "Mr. Fang, Please give me some pointers. Fang Yen waved his hand and said, I don't dare to give you pointers. You too are good at tea, but you still lack understanding of the materials. After a long time, you have accumulated a lot. Good tea and good water can be seen at a glance. Thank you, Mr. Fang. The oval-faced girl said gently. While they were tasting and discussing tea, Sirius was also brought over. He was pushed over in a wheelchair. Looking at Fang Yen, who was sitting opposite Du Qing, his eyes were filled with uncontrollable hatred. After staring at Fang Yen for a few seconds, he greeted Du Qing and said, Mr. Du, you're looking for me. Sirius, let me ask you something. Du Qing walked in front of Sirius and said, What's the conflict between you and Mr. Fang? Sirius looked at Fang Yen again and said in a low voice, A little misunderstanding. Has the misunderstanding been resolved? Yes, Sirius said. Someone had informed him before he came, so how could he dare to speak carelessly? Will there be no problem in the future? Du Qing looked at the bruise on Sirius' face and had a new understanding of Fang Yen. His subordinates had only reported to him that Sirius was injured, but they had not expected him to be injured to this extent. This kid's methods were also quite sinister. No more, Tian Lang said unwillingly. The misunderstanding has been resolved. Du Qing turned to look at Lu Gong and said, Old Master Lu, you see, the attitude of the person involved is quite good. Why don't you let me be the peacemaker in the middle and let this matter rest? Lu Gong waved his hand and said, A pitiful person must have a hateful side. Let him go. Du Qing patted Sirius' shoulder and said, Have a good rest. Yes. Sirius's eyes turned red and he said in a choked voice, Thank you, Mr. Du. Du Qing waved his hand, and Sirius was pushed out. He is also a good man, Du Qing said with a smile. No discord, no concord. Brother Fang Yen, we can still be friends in the future. Am I right? We are already friends, Fang Yen said with a smile. Mr. Du, I have had a deeper conversation with Brother Wolf. He said he was following orders. I heard that someone wanted to frame me. I'm really curious. What kind of person has such a deep hatred for me that he wants to ruin my reputation? Du Qing pondered and did not speak. Obviously, Sirius was just a staircase, so that the two sides could get off the stage without falling out. However, the other party was very dissatisfied with this explanation. Du Qing looked at Fang Yen and asked, Brother Fang Yen is a refined man. Which of the four gentlemen do you like the most? Bamboo, Fang Yen said. Integrity makes one strong, unintentional goods make one proud. After several storms, one would rather break than bend. It is still green all year round, not competing with other flowers. Listen, how high the evaluation of bamboo is. Brother Fang Yen should dislike bamboo the most, Du Qing said with a smile. Fang Yen looked at Du Qing thoughtfully with a stern expression. Drink some tea. Drink some tea. Du Qing said with a smile. Elder Lu, this tea is really cheap here. When you go back, bring the tea with you. I know where your mansion is. I will get someone to send the newly fetched spring water over. A refined man should do this kind of thing. It is a waste for a rough person like me to drink this. Lu Gong refused and said, I don't deserve it. No matter how good this tea is, I will feel uneasy. If I feel uneasy, the tea will be tasteless. Then grandfather will give Mr. Du a piece of calligraphy, Fang Yen said with a smile. Grandfather's calligraphy is no worse than Mr. Gong's. Du Qing was overjoyed and said, Then I am really grateful. To be able to receive a gift from old Mr. Lu, this Du is truly fortunate. Lu Gong glanced at Fang Yen and did not refuse in the end. 3,000 guests of Chunshan, 5 feet south of Shaodu City. 2 lines of large characters appeared on the expensive Xian paper. The ink was full and strong. Lu Kai thought for a moment, then wrote his own signature at the bottom in small script. Du Qing felt as if he had received a treasure. He bowed to Lu Gong again and again and said, "Thank you, Elder Lu, for the calligraphy. I will definitely hang it on the wall. I will study and appreciate it every day." 3,000 guests of Chunshan, 5 feet south of Shaodu City. This was a couplet written by the Secretary General of the outgoing President Li Yuanhong. It described the great Shanghai Du Yuesheng. Du Yuesheng was one of the most famous figures in the Qing gang in modern times. He was known as Huaxia gang boss and Huaxia's #1 gang leader. His life was all-powerful. He was in the business world, the military, the political world, and other fields. It could be said that there was no one before him and no one after him. Just like those ordinary hooligans who idolized Chen Haonan from young and dangerous, Du Qing also had admirers. That was Du Yuesheng, an influential figure from hundreds of years ago. They had the same surname, Du, and both started in the underworld. Who didn't want to become the current Lord Chunshan like Du Yuesheng? It could be said that Lu Gong's couplet vividly expressed his thoughts. "It's none of my business," Lu Gong said indifferently. He was not interested in these things at all. "Leah, wrap up the tea and give it to Brother Fang Yan. Also, I will personally send Elder Lu's writing fee to your house." After sending off Lu Gong and Fang Yan, Du Qing stood in front of the calligraphy and admired it happily. Leah pushed open the door and walked in. She said, "Uncle Du, usually when people give you such expensive gifts, you don't look this happy. Isn't it just a piece of calligraphy? What does a child know?" Du Qing said with a smile. "Do you know how the former Prime Minister praised Old Man Lu? The Prime Minister's original words were, 'I am the Prime Minister of the political world, and you are the Prime Minister of the academic world. After thousands of years, the people will forget me, but they will still remember you. The Prime Minister of the academic world. This Prime Minister of the academic world is unyielding, but I've never heard of him giving words to anyone. I can tell that he was unwilling at first. It's just that that fellow surnamed Fang is greedy and lustful, so he asked grandfather to exchange words." "Greedy and lustful?" Du Qing laughed. "This is your evaluation of Fang Yan?" "That's right. Doesn't he just want our old tree to Hong Pao? His eyes are also constantly looking at Xiao Bai and Xiao Ting's thighs, making me want to dig out his eyeballs." Du Qing shook his head and said, "Leah, 1,000 people have 1,000 faces. The reason I let you follow me is to let you learn how to read people. If you don't read people correctly, then the dishes will definitely not be to your liking. This Fang Yan is not as bad as you said. On the contrary, he is a first-class figure. What's so great about him?" Leah was a little unconvinced. Leah was the daughter of an old friend of Du Qing's. During a gang conflict, he rushed over to help him block a fatal shot. Du Qing was alive, but his old friend was dead. From then on, Leah became Du Qing's adopted daughter. He didn't have any children of his own, so he completely treated Leah as the successor of his Azure Cloud group. Therefore, when he had time, he was willing to teach her more things. "In my eyes, he is even cuter than Old Man Lu," Du Qing said. "Some people, because they are mythical, it is difficult for us mortals to get close to them. Everyone knows Lu Mang's personality, so no one can do anything to him. They can only respect him. However, if you are too stubborn, you will break easily. Lu Mang's personality is destined to be a loner. However, how can a person not have friends in this society? Lu Gong is a cultured person. He can endure loneliness, and even enjoy the loneliness brought about by this reputation. However, can others do the same? If Lu Gong rejects my good tea today, then, I will no longer have any interactions with him in the future." The corner of Du Qing's mouth carried a hint of a smile, and said, "But, Fang Yan was able to smooth things over in the middle, allowing me to have a chance to interact with him. I will give him tea, he will give me calligraphy and paintings, and then I will find an opportunity to go to the mansion to give him a brush fee. Wouldn't everyone be familiar with each other?" "But, why are you doing this?" Leah asked. "Those cultured people always look down on us, why should we make friends with him?" It's not that I want to make friends with Lu Gong. Du Qing laughed. It's Fang Yan who wants to make friends with me. His grandfather could isolate himself from the world, but he couldn't. He doesn't have the face, the scene, or the feelings, but I do. Leah rolled her eyes, and said, "Why are you men's thoughts so complicated? Isn't it better to just say it out loud? Aren't you afraid of getting dizzy?" Du Qing shook his head helplessly, and said, "There are some words that whoever says it will be at a disadvantage." Du Qing pointed to his head and said, "I have to comprehend." After a pause, he smiled with a playful expression and said, "Isn't that good?" Jiangzhu Lu against the fire above. Flower City has been quiet for a long time, it should be lively now, right? Do you have sweet potato porridge? It's still in the pot. I'll cook it for you. No need. Porridge is fine, Lu Gong said. Fang Yan, have a bowl too. Fang. Fang Yan and Yan. Lu is the old lady. In the past, Fang Yan had always lived in the north, and the old couple rarely had the chance to see him. Now that her grandson had come to work for them, she naturally had to take care of Fang Yan's daily life. Whatever. Lu Gong waved his hand and said. The old lady happily went to stir-fry some side dishes. Fang Yan and Lu Gong sat at the dining table and each filled a bowl of sweet potato porridge to eat. Grandma's porridge is really good. Fang Yan praised. Lu Gong raised his head and glanced at Fang Yan. He carefully chewed the food in his mouth without saying a word. Fang Yan understood his grandfather's meaning and tactfully shut up. He knew that his grandfather adhered to the habit of not talking while eating or sleeping. When eating, he didn't like to talk or listen to others. Grandma's movements were swift, and she quickly brought out two side dishes that went well with the rice. One was lettuces, and the other was stir-fried green beans with meat. Fang Yan ate to his heart's content and went to get another bowl of porridge. Lu Gong put down his bowl and chopsticks, indicating that he was already full. Fang Yan ate another bowl of appetizers before putting down his chopsticks in satisfaction. Follow me to the study. Lu Gong said. After that, he stood up and left. Okay. Fang Yan agreed. You just dropped the bowl. Why don't you let me sit down and rest? Grandma complained while cleaning the table. Lu Gong didn't respond. He took Fang Yan to the study on the second floor. Lu Gong's study was 200 square meters, occupying more than half of the entire second floor. The other half was the balcony, where he could sit down and drink tea, smoke, or play 5 animal frolics twice to exercise. Apart from a wooden table and chairs in the study, there were bookshelves everywhere. The bookshelves were filled with books of different sizes and colors. There were rare books from the Ming and Qing dynasties, manuscripts of unofficial history, biographies of famous people, general history of China and the world, poems from the Tang and Song dynasties, philosophy, education, music, and fine arts. Rather than calling it a study, it would be better to call it a small library. What impressed Fang Yan the most was that Lu Gong was not the kind of person who flaunted his knowledge. He deliberately bought these books and hid them at home in order to show others that he was knowledgeable. He was a real book lover. He had read most of these books and even made a lot of comments and wrote dozens of reading notes in them. The reason why Lu Gong retired early was that he felt neglected by these old friends. Fang Yan didn't have many opportunities to come to the south, and he had only been able to enter his grandfather's study a few times. He looked at the huge study enviously and reached out to take a thread-bound book called Zhua Zongtang's Anecdotes from the bookshelf. Stop! Lu Gong shouted. Fang Yan quickly withdrew his hand and looked at Lu Gong in confusion. Wash your hands first. Lu Gong pointed to the corner and said. My hands are clean. That's what you think. Fang Yan smiled bitterly. He had to wash his hands and wipe them with a white towel before he dared to touch these little treasures. Every book is the author's painstaking effort. You must have respect for words, Lu Gong educated him. I understand. Fang Yen looked at the romantic history of Lu Sanbian in his hands and was immediately filled with respect. Lu Gong sat down in front of the desk and looked at Fang Yen. Fang Yen, you want to make friends with Du Qing? It's not exactly making friends. Fang Yen smiled. He walked in front of Lu Gong and explained, it's borrowing each other's power. He wants to borrow your power, and I want to borrow his power. Just teach and educate people. Borrowing power? Fang Yen smiled bitterly and said, Grandpa, that's what I thought too. But didn't you see the actual situation? I didn't provoke anyone to be my language teacher, but they did this to me. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. No matter how strong the boss is, it can't withstand a group attack. There has to be a teammate to help at the critical moment. Even if they don't help, it's fine to stand at the side and shout. Lu Gong pondered and said, have you found the person behind the scenes? I've finally found it, Fang Yen said. Who is it? Lu Gong's eyes were sharp as he said coldly. Fang Yen knew his grandfather's stubborn temper. If he knew who the enemy was, he would definitely fight them to the death. He was strict with himself, but he also doted on him. Grandpa, leave this matter to me, Fang Yen said with a smile. If you let an old man handle everything, wouldn't it make your grandson seem incompetent? Be careful, Lu Gong reminded him. It's not like before. I understand, Fang Yen agreed. Teach and educate people well and bring out a few good seedlings. I don't expect you to make all the students in your class great. I also know that it's not realistic. However, if you can bring more good students out, you will be making a great contribution to society. Lu Ken tried his best to persuade him. He had been an educator his whole life, so as long as there was a chance, he would educate people. This was also the reason why his grandmother had repeatedly asked Fang Yen to stay, but he still insisted on renting a house outside. He wasn't afraid of his grandfather and father who knew martial arts, but he was afraid of his grandfather who was a scholar who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. I will work hard to learn from you, Grandpa. Fang Yen took the opportunity to flatter him. Lu Gong's expression looked better as he said, I didn't approve of you learning martial arts in the past. In times of peace, what's the point of learning those fighting and killing skills all day? Isn't it enough to practice the 5 animal frolics and do a few rounds of Tai Chi every morning? Reading more is the right way. You will naturally have a scholarly air. You're right, Grandpa. Fang Yen thought of the burning feeling in his dantian again. He knew that he must have been touched by something, or else this wouldn't have happened. He said, Grandpa, you faced so many strong enemies today. It made my blood boil. I admire you. Strong enemies? They're just gangsters. Lu Gong sneered. They are afraid of me. I don't fear them. Du Qing worked his way up from the bottom, so he naturally knew that life wasn't easy. What's in it for them to torture my old bones? If only I could do the same as Grandpa, Fang Yen said with a smile. This sentence wasn't completely flattering, but it also had his true thoughts. When he saw his grandfather proudly say, I know your family is rich and has many disciples. Let's see what you can do to me today. His heart was really touched. Why can't you do it? Lu Gong asked. You've been well-read since you were a child, and your martial arts are superior to your peers. You write well, draw well, know how to play the zither, play the flute. You're smart and observant. You have much more than me and many people. Why can't you do it? Fang Yen looked at his grandfather in surprise. Why did this old man think so highly of him? Because you lack spirit, Lu Gong said seriously. A man can't stand without a soul. The reason why you're a man is not because you're 8 feet tall, but because you have spirit. Napoleon was 5 feet 2 inches tall, but he rode his horse and pointed his sword at the world, becoming a great man of his generation. Fang Yen, you have so many talents, why can't you get what you want? Spirit. You lack spirit. Fang Yen seemed to be possessed, and his mind kept repeating this sentence. The burning feeling in his dantian became stronger again, as if it was burning a hole in his flesh. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his face became extremely ugly. Boom! There was a sharp pain in his mind, like fireworks exploding in a galaxy. The sky was full of stars, dazzling. Chapter 55. Seeing Fang Yan's strange expression, Lu Gong didn't ask. Instead, he stood up and shouted, Fang Yan, what do you want? What do I want? Fang Yan had a splitting headache. What do I want? What do I want? Do you want the world or the beauty? Do you want to be at the peak of martial arts or be admired by thousands? Do you want to leave your name in history or be a teacher? Tell me, what do you want? Fang Yan hadn't thought about it. He had never thought about it. Since he was a child, he had been learning all kinds of skills under the arrangement of his family. Tai Chi sans ho, zither, chess, poetry, painting, and tea. When he first sparred with Yi Ro, his only goal in life was to defeat Yi Ro. For this goal, he had worked hard for countless days and nights. However, he didn't know whether it was because he didn't have enough talent or hard work. Year after year, he was defeated by Yi Ro again and again. He couldn't even achieve this only goal. Especially in the last 2 years, his Tai Chi stage didn't improve, but it seemed to be stagnant. Of the 11 stages of Tai Chi, he had originally cultivated to the 4th stage, floating clouds and willow catkins without roots, flying with the vast heaven and earth. For 2 years, his heart didn't understand anything, his strength didn't increase, and his martial arts didn't improve. For the first time in his life, Fang Yan felt panic. This time, he ran away not only to escape the fate of being defeated and humiliated by Yi Ro again, but also to avoid his flaws being exposed in front of others. He was the hope of the Fang family. He didn't want to see everyone disappointed. He was proud. He was as proud as Yi Ro. He had a proud heart, but he was always slapped in the face by Yi Ro. This made him gradually become shameless. However, these were all given to him by others or his family. What do I really want? This was the first time someone asked him this question, and it was also the first time Fang Yan thought about it. In ancient times, there were 3 immortal things, called Li De, and Li De. Life is only 100 years, it's gone in a flash. The body dies easily, but the spirit is immortal. Fang Yan, are you going to make a contribution or a statement? Fang Yan looked up at Lu Gong, who was looking at him expectantly. That was the expectation an elder had for a junior, the expectation a family had for their closest relative. This was the expectation that the inheritor of a culture had for the inheritor. Fang Yan's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Lu Gong walked up to Fang Yan, patted him on the shoulder, and said, no matter what, a person must have a mind. Even if you are a teacher, you must be different from others. You are still young and have a long way to go. Think about it slowly. There's no hurry. Grandfather. Fang Yan looked up at Lu Gong. Lu Gong was overjoyed. Could it be that after his warning, his grandson, Fang Yan, had finally decided to give up martial arts and enter the literary world, turning over a new leaf and becoming an educator with ideals and pursuits? If that was really the case, then the Lu and Fang families were really lucky. I won't do this again, Fang Yan said as if he was making a promise. His expression was solemn, and his voice was extremely heavy. Sitting on the cement bank of the Sparrow River, Fang Yan didn't make a sound for a long time. The burning sensation in his dantian had disappeared, and the pain in his head had also stopped. From the outside, he didn't look any different from before. However, Fang Yan knew that he had changed a lot. His Taiji heart, which Fang Yan thought was dead for a long time, finally began to move again. Although it was extremely slow, he could feel a fine flow of qi. What did Taiji practice? To train the body, the most important thing was to accumulate strength. Training the body was to train strength. Strength was produced by the contraction and relaxation of muscles, and was related to the support of bones. There was an optimal point to exert strength. Moving forward or backward by an inch would result in a different amount of strength. In real life, there were weights, dumbbells, push-ups, and other physical exercises. Those that trained muscles were all training physical strength. Strength was the flow of qi. In order to achieve a certain goal, the movement of the body and energy were called strength. If a move was a combination of a body with a purpose, then strength was a combination of qi with a purpose. For example, in the movies, two people would punch and kick each other, or slash each other with a knife and a sword. That was a move. However, when Xiao Feng stood still and waved his hands, suddenly, a huge white dragon roared and rushed toward his opponent. That was the 18 dragons subduing palms formed by the combination of strength and qi. From the special effect, it could be seen that strength and qi were of a higher level than strength. Fang Yan was born in a Taiji family, so he had a deep understanding of the differences between strength, and qi. The Taiji heart was a circle formed by qi in the dantian. It couldn't be seen or touched, but it could be clearly felt. The circle of qi rotated freely, and thousands of threads flowed into the 360 acupoints and 84,000 pores in the body. It was very comfortable. It was a gas station that supplied qi to every meridian and acupoint in the body. 3 years ago, Fang Yan discovered the Taiji heart. 2 years later, the Taiji heart was still. Now, it had finally come back to life. Fang Yan was so excited that he wanted to shout and yell to vent. If he hadn't discovered that his Taiji heart had disappeared, he wouldn't have done such a shameful thing as running away from home. Of course, it was a blessing in disguise. He hadn't been out for long, but after hearing what his grandfather, Lu Gong, said, he activated the Taiji heart again. Why? In Fang Yan's heart, he found the answer that he couldn't figure out. You lack spirit, his grandfather said. This sentence pointed to Fang Yan's heart. Could it be that people needed spirit, and so did Taiji? Only when people had spirit would they have a soul. And when Taiji had spirit? Yes, when Taiji had spirit, it had qi. Fang Yan was suddenly enlightened, and he couldn't help but want to praise himself for being a genius. But when he remembered that he promised his grandfather that he wouldn't do anything stupid again, he could only suppress this impulse in his heart and secretly gave himself a thumbs up to comfort himself. Hey! A girl's voice came from behind. Fang Yan turned around and saw Qinitian in a white school uniform standing in the grass under the ginkgo tree. The leaves and grass were covered with dew, crystal clear and crisp, like a young and beautiful girl. Fang Yan looked at Qinitian in surprise and asked, Qinitian, why don't you go to class again? I'm waiting for the language class in the afternoon. Qinitian smiled. She patted the white bag on her shoulder and said, Look, I even brought a raincoat. After school yesterday, Fang Yan gave the students a task. They must bring raincoats to class today. There was a light rain in the morning, but it stopped now. But the sky was still gloomy, and the clouds were very low. It seemed that it would rain again in the afternoon. Don't you have to go to other teachers' classes? Fang Yan said angrily. Skipping class is bad behavior. It will bring a bad influence to other students. Is that so? Qinitian tilted his head and thought for a while, then said, So what? Do I need to be responsible for the lives of every student in the class? They see you as their idol, so I have to follow the rules, not be late, not skip class, listen carefully, take notes, and be a role model? If that's the case, am I still the Qinitian that they liked before? Qinitian said proudly. The reason why I am Qinitian is that I can do whatever I want and want whatever I want. I'm just being myself, and there's no need to change myself. Fang Yan shook his head with a bitter smile and said, You are really not likable. You will like it. Qinitian looked at Fang Yan and said very seriously, Even if you don't like it now, it doesn't matter, because we still have a long time. Men looking for another partner is no different from animals looking for a mate. They will find the one who has the same smell. Why do I have to like you? To satisfy your bad taste? It's not like that. Chinitian took off the other earphone on his right ear, shook his hair to make it more supple, and said, I think you are a very interesting person, and so am I. If we are together, will it be more interesting? I don't think I deserve you, Fang Yan said. These days, it was popular to give people a good person card. When you didn't like someone, you could say, you are a good person, but I don't think I deserve you. Not only did you reject the other person, but you also made the other person feel that you were superior. That's right, Fang Yan was rejecting Chinitian. He wanted to make the other person retreat, so that even if she was rejected by him, she wouldn't hold a grudge. Listen, I don't deserve you, so I belittle myself to raise you. What else do you have to say? If you say that I have no conscience, do you still have a conscience? It's true. Chinitian nodded and said. But I will give you more time and more opportunities. There are 2 fires in your name, but they are 2 dead fires. I think I will have the opportunity to ignite them, right? Fang Yan. What? Do you have time? What? Go shopping with me. What? Chinitian smiled and said, it seems that all the couples in the world like to go shopping. I was wondering, what kind of feeling is this? Fang Yan's curiosity was also aroused, and he said, indeed. It's boring to go shopping alone. If 2 people go shopping, will there be any difference? Can we get a discount when we eat and buy things? Oh, the merchants really know how to do business. Chapter 56. Today was really not a good day to go shopping. The sky was dark, and the clouds were getting lower and lower. The cold wind blew on his body, and his hair and face were unconsciously soaked by the sporadic rain falling from the sky. There were no bright smiles blooming in the sun, no suspenders showing beautiful collarbones and slender necks, no beautiful legs wrapped in black stockings. Oh, there were a few beautiful women who were not afraid of the cold and insisted on bringing benefits to people. Fang Yan sincerely admired them in his heart. They didn't travel because of the long journey, they didn't fall in love because they were hurt, and they didn't wear black stockings because the weather was cold. These behaviors were all hooligans. Because of the weather, there were few people on the pedestrian street today. Fang Yan, who was wearing a black buttonless Chinese tunic suit, and Chinitian, who was wearing a white school uniform and blue trousers, walked side by side, very eye-catching. Fang Yan was delicate and handsome, and he always had a smile on his face when he walked. He raised his head slightly, looking quite proud, as if he had just beaten Yi Ruru hard, instead of being beaten by Yi Ruru and running away from home. Chinitian was like a lotus flower in clear water, without any makeup. But that face without makeup gave people a soul-stirring beauty. She had shoulder-length hair and a slender figure. What was more outstanding was her temperament, walking in the crowd like a queen inspecting her subjects. She didn't say anything, didn't do anything, just walked on quietly. However, everyone couldn't help but cast their eyes on her. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Probably this was the scene they were talking about. Because of the lack of business, many salespeople and owners of stores were looking out. There was surprise and envy in their eyes. But most of them were admiration. That girl is so beautiful, like a fairy in a painting. The boy is also very handsome. But the clothes he is wearing are too old-fashioned. If he changed into our new sweatshirt, it would be more matching. It was just a simple matter of a man taking a girl out for a walk, but it had become the material and seasoning of their discussion. Chinitian was very tall, almost reaching Fang Yan's chin. Fortunately, she was tall. Otherwise, she would not have been able to control her innate aura of supremacy. I really don't know what's so great about her, Fang Yan thought to himself. Just because she's pretty, strong, and good at her studies, she can be so arrogant. If that's the case, shouldn't I write a sign around my neck with the words "I am teacher Qinitian, Fang Yan" written in red? Did Fang Yan do that? No. Therefore, Mr. Fang was actually a very low-key man. As they walked, Qinitian suddenly handed his white handbag to Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked at her in confusion and asked, "Why?" "The boys seem to give the girls their backpacks," Qinitian said, pointing at the few couples on the street. Fang Yan studied it carefully. It was exactly the same as what Qinitian said. The girls were shopping happily, and the boys were carrying female bags, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Must it be like this?" Fang Yan asked. Qinitian did not answer. She looked at Fang Yan and nodded lightly. Her smile was faint, indifferent, and elegant. Ba, ba, ba. Fang Yan quickly spat in his heart. What's wrong with me? Why do I always think of words like noble, elegant, and tall when I'm around this girl? What's so elegant about a smile? I'm being cheap. Fang Yan scolded himself in his heart. I must stay true to myself. I can't be easily bewitched by this little fairy, little witch. Fang Yan took Qinitian's white bag and carried it on his shoulder. He looked at it carefully and was happy. This bag matched him quite well. When they walked to the door of a Hong Kong-style fishball restaurant, Qinitian stopped again. Hungry? Fang Yan asked. No. Qinitian shook his head. Then what do you want to do? Qinitian pointed at the couples who were lining up and said, It seems that they all like to eat this. You go and line up too. Fang Yan and Qinitian, each holding a bowl of fish balls in their hands, stood at the door of an Italian restaurant. Fang Yan chewed the hot fish balls and asked, Miss, can we go in and eat together? Is there a discount? The waitress nodded with a smile and said, Sir, our restaurant is having a promotion. Today is the last day. If 2 people eat, one of them will get a 50% discount. Fang Yan and Qinitian looked at each other and thought that these businessmen really knew how to do business. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Fang Yan went to the washroom. When he came back, Qinitian was paying the bill with his card. Fang Yan said reproachfully, This kind of thing should be done by a man. How can I let a girl pay the bill? Where do you want me to put my face? The waitress looked at Fang Yan with appreciation and thought that this man was very good. You don't have money like me. Qinitian signed her name on the receipt printed out by the POS machine without hesitation. Fang Yan felt a pain in his chest as if he had been stabbed by a knife. He felt that he had completely lost face this time. Therefore, the waitress looked at Fang Yan with eyes full of contempt. After the meal, Fang Yan accompanied Qinitian to continue shopping. Passing by the door of a shop called Jiangnan Silk and Satin Shop, Fang Yan took the initiative to stop. Qinitian looked up at the name of the shop and then looked at the cheongsam and silk scarves sold inside. He understood and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Let's go in and have a look. Fang Yan said with a smile. You treat me to dinner, and I'll buy you a small gift. Okay. Qinitian readily agreed. Welcome. The staff of the silk and satin shop were all wearing tang suits and the women were all wearing cheongsam, which looked quite retro. A saleswoman greeted them and asked with a smile, Sir, Miss, please feel free to look around. We have a lot of new styles in our shop. Fang Yan looked around and said, I want to buy a cheongsam for my friend. Is there a suitable one? The saleswoman had already seen Qinitian beside Fang Yan. Such a beautiful girl could not be ignored by men and women. She said, Why not? To be honest, I haven't seen a woman with more temperament than this lady. She looks good in any clothes. Then let's go out and buy a set of sportswear. Fang Yan joked. No, no, no. The saleswoman knew that she had said the wrong thing and quickly asked them to stay. This lady. Call her a girl. She is still a student. Fang Yan corrected her. Okay. This girl, her temperament is so good that she looks good in any clothes. However, the cheongsam in our shop can have a kind of icing on the cake effect on her. If she goes out in our cheongsam, she will definitely be charming, and the number of people turning their heads will be hundreds of times. How do you calculate the number of hundreds of times? Some people turned their heads several times. The saleswoman said with a smile. Who doesn't want to see such a beautiful girl a few more times? Choose one, Fang Yan said. I'm not very good at this kind of thing. Okay, this is our new style. Fang Yan stood still and said, we want to see the classic style. The saleswoman quickly looked at Fang Yan's expression. She despised him in her heart, but she said happily, Sir, you really have good taste. The classic style will never go out of style. Moreover, we are having a discount on the classic style. One piece is 15% off, buy two get one free. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, it's not about money. Choose the clothes. You make it sound like you are very poor. Fang Yan thought in his heart. He looked at the name of the shop again and secretly remembered it. He thought that he would never come again. No problem. The saleswoman carefully looked at Qin Etienne's appearance and said, this lotus root white one with a peony embroidered on it is very good. It is very suitable for the girl's noble temperament, no. Qin Etienne directly refused. This Awe of the Phoenix is selling very well, too complicated. What about this one? This pattern of a spirit bird announcing good news was also very popular among young girls nowadays. They all say it is very festive. No connotation. To be honest, if it wasn't for the promotion of sales, the saleswoman would have gone crazy. Young miss, why are you so difficult to please? Aren't you just buying a stagnant product that is on sale at the end of the season? Do you have to be so picky? You don't need to change clothes. Just change your boyfriend. If you change your boyfriend, I can take you to the boutique area. Fang Yan's eyes were also looking around. He took a small white floral cheongsam from the corner and gave it to Qin Etienne. He asked, how about this one? Qin Etienne smiled and said, okay. So, Qin Etienne took the cheongsam and went in to change clothes. The saleswoman secretly rolled her eyes several times with her partner. She thought that it was not the clothes she chose that were not good, but the person she chose was wrong. Choosing clothes is also a skill. Fang Yan said to the saleswoman. Her temperament is elegant, so you can't use more elegant clothes to match her. She is just a student. It's not like she is going to walk on the red carpet in Hollywood. Why does she need to be so dazzling? Especially that Awe of the Phoenix. Not only did it ruin the clothes, but it also ruined the person. You are right. I didn't expect it. The saleswoman said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable about clothing matching, because I see a lot of people. Fang Yan said with a smile. I knew you don't like me. The wooden door of the changing room opened. Qin Etienne, who was wearing a floral cheongsam, stood in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yan's pupils dilated. He hurriedly wondered if he had forgotten something important. Oh, it was a heartbeat. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.